Welcome to episode 82 of Two Guys, One Sport. My name is Chris, and unfortunately, the man that is normally to my left, right, and center, George, is down in Florida land tonight. Hopefully, he is not being accosted by Florida man, which would be the worst possible fate. So it's not possible to replace George by only one man, so I had to bring in two. I brought in two ringers tonight. First of all, we have the godfather of LIP. We are all his godsons, and we are happy to have him as our godfather. The legendary Taker's Minion. Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Chris. Good evening, Biff.
Indeed.
Or as they say in Japanese, konbanwa.
Konbanwa.
Yeah, konbanwa. I was doing that last night.
Very nice.
Something I learned.
Getting some lessons from your partner in crime, Mr. MDS, Mr. Dr. Senju. I love the Department of Redundancy department. I'm all about that. And, of course, we have the historian, the incredibly knowledgeable, the wise Biff Kensington III. Good evening to you, sir.
And a very pleasant good evening to everybody, or as they say here in the southern land, good evening, everybody.
I like it. I like it a lot. We've got a good amount of stuff on the docket for you guys tonight. A big part of it being that since we were absent last week due to the Thanksgiving holiday, we are going to be covering Survivor Series and NXT TakeOver War Games since we missed our opportunity to recap those two shows. We've also got a little bit of World Tag League update for you guys, which started right after our show 2 weeks ago. And we're going to talk about what was possibly one of the lowest low points for WWE in 2018, and maybe even of the current decade, which was this past week's Monday Night Raw. That is all to come. But first of all, we are starting with our matches of the week. And rolling the dice here, well, they're imaginary dice because I don't actually have any dice right in front of me. But Taker, you're going first.
All righty. Match of the week. We're going to jump in the Wayback Machine here. Go back to June 28th of 2017, an NXT show. One of their tapings.
Yep.
This is coming off, I think, of TakeOver San Antonio, where Asuka pinned both I think, who was it? Ruby Riott and Nikki Cross in the center of the ring, which turned out a lot of controversy.
Yes. So
one thing led to another. They had another match, some kind of elimination tournament or whatever to see who would face Asuka next, and this Nikki Cross won. Which leads us to our match on the 28th of June, the last woman standing match. The match went almost 25 minutes. It was the very first time we ever had a last man standing match for the women.
Mm-hmm.
And here we have two of the greatest stars that NXT has ever had. Kana / Asuka, who could beat the hell out of a paper bag and make it look good. And Nikki Cross, her just being her crazy ass.
Mm-hmm.
Match starts out, typical lockup. They're battling back and forth, but throughout the match, you see him each time stepping it up, getting higher and higher on the intensity scale, to where you see Asuka get thrown into the stairs. Or no, Asuka goes to do a baseball slide out of the ring. She is met by the apron, by Nikki Cross. She picks up the apron and traps her in between the ring and the apron. Knocks her around a little bit, walks around to the side where the LED board is, and there's about an 8-inch gap between the bottom of the LED board and the floor. She starts pulling chairs out from underneath the ring.
Mm-hmm.
Leads to a attempted suplex spot. Asuka gets thrown into stairs. They start counting. It goes back and forth. One of the things it leads up to is a spot where Asuka brings steel garbage can into the ring, puts it over Nikki Cross, starts kicking it, kicking it, you would say,
mm-hmm.
On both the front and the back of it. More than once, Nikki falls forward. Asuka grabs the can, stands her back up. You see her hit the top of the can with her hand 3 or 4 times. I guess it's signaling to Nikki Cross is going up to the top rope, and she hits a missile drop kick off the top rope into said garbage can, knocking Nikki Cross ass over tea kettle in the middle of the ring, and she comes out of the can looking like what the hell just happened to me? Like her bell's rung, you know, the old typical cartoonish thing you would see with characters getting caught in a bell and then someone ringing the bell. But, you know, it kept, the intensity increased. I found myself when I initially watched it more, you know, riveted to my seat. It was one of those, couldn't take my eyes off the match. You know, we had the stack of chairs thrown. I mean, it was like 15 chairs, 15, 20 chairs get thrown into the ring at one point. They are, let's see, Asuka gets suplexed into it. That's right. Asuka gets suplexed into the stack. And then one thing or another leads to where Nikki gets up on the top rope. She's going to go try to hit a splash or some kind of leg drop off the top rope. Asuka rolls out of the way, and Nikki Cross crashes and burns into that pile of chairs.
Yeah.
and you know, it was just one thing that led, you know, one thing after another. And then each time it was more and more intense. They spill out of the ring again. They get over by the announce table. They get other tables out. They grab a 16-foot A-frame ladder, and you're thinking, are you kidding me? Are they going to do something off of that? But what they do off of that 16-foot A-frame ladder is something that I have yet to see anywhere. Asuka and Nikki Cross are both on that ladder, one on each side. They've got each other set up for a suplex. Nikki tries to suplex Asuka. No, blocked. She tries it again, blocked. Asuka tries the first time. Nikki blocks it. Second time, Asuka gets her up. They fall through the announce table to the floor from the top of that ladder. Then the referee starts counting 10. Asuka's up at 9.5. Nikki stays down at 10. Asuka wins the match. But here's my takeaway from the match. At the end of it, you could look, the camera shows Nikki Cross laying there, beaten, and she is laughing.
Yeah, I remember that moment.
She has got this biggest smile on her face, and she is laughing.
Yeah.
That match just had me locked in for the entire time.
Yeah.
You know, you could not take your eyes off the match from beginning to end because you were sitting there go, okay, what's going to happen next? How are they going to top this one? It just, you know, great. I sit there still in awe of that match. I mean, when that match was all over, my mouth was open. You know, I'm sitting there, my jaw was hanging on the floor, sitting on the floor. And I was like, oh my God. This was the greatest match I've seen in years. So, Brother Chris, who will be next?
I think we're going to have Mr. Kensington go next. Good sir.
Well, you know, when I was looking, I love finding matches that don't obviously stand out as matches that you would want to really take in. I love finding the little jewels that are kind of hidden throughout maybe the WWE Network or on YouTube that you could find, and you kind of sit back and like, oh, that don't sound like a great match on paper, but it actually turns into a hell of a deal. So I've got a match from 1998 from the heart of the Attitude Era, from SummerSlam 98 to be exact. It's the opening match between D'Lo Brown and Val Venis for the European Championship. Now, for those that weren't watching at the time or only have vague recollections, this is the famous SummerSlam from Madison Square Garden. This was the show headlined by Steve Austin and The Undertaker. The Attitude Era kind of gets a bad rap for not having a lot of great quality in-ring action, and sometimes that reputation is well-earned. If you sit through one Godfather match, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But that's no disrespect to the Godfather. He had a
no, of course.
But and I unless anyone think that I'm being offensive to the Godfather, my match involves a porn star, so it is what it is. But Val Venis and D'Lo Brown for the European Championship. This was kind of the quintessential opening match fare that you would get in the WWF in '98. but it's surprisingly good for the time that it lasts. It's about a 15-minute match. I'm not going to break it down move by move. I think, part of the charm of the match is to see these two guys that are not really known as your top-level workers just kind of busting ass out there and trying to get over. The energy of the crowd is high. People were really jacked to be there, and it led to a really surprisingly good match. It's one of those lost 4-star classics that you don't really think about. But that would be my match of the week. I would highly recommend you checking it out. It's only about a 15-minute match, so it doesn't take too awful long to get through. But it's easily accessible through the WWE Network. SummerSlam 98, the opener. Val Venus taking on D'Lo Brown for the European Championship. It's well worth the watch if you've never seen it before.
For sure. Awesome. All right, cool. My match of the week actually is a match that took place this week. And I figured since George is not here with us this week, we might as well make sure to pay him some tribute by giving coverage to his current favorite person in wrestling, none other than one Miss Rhea Ripley. And what better way to talk about that than by discussing what may be her greatest triumph to date? As the match of the week for me this week is the first ever NXT UK Women's Championship match between Rhea Ripley and Toni Storm. This was the culmination of a tournament, actually, for the NXT UK Women's Championship. It was a 8-woman tournament that took place over the course of the first set of NXT UK tapings. Rhea Ripley's path to victory led her first through Zia Brookside, then to Dakota Kai, whereas Toni Storm took on Isla Dawn in the first round, and then took on Ginny in the second round. Both of them had great matches leading up to this final, which was a real great match. The crux of the match is based around an early spot where Toni Storm gets shoved into she doesn't get shoved into the barricade. She goes for a hip attack on the outside to Rhea, and Rhea dodges it, and Toni just goes back first into the crowd barricade on the outside, and Rhea immediately takes advantages and just starts hitting everything she can on Toni's back to just do as much damage to it as possible. There's the one spot that I absolutely love, and it's little things. Little things can often be the biggest things of a match, and this was a little thing that made such a huge difference and shows just how good these two are with their ring awareness. While all that was going on, the ref is counting, obviously, and he's looking for that 10 count. Rhea rolls up onto the apron, makes like she's going to roll into the ring, and then just like spins around to roll back out, almost like she was trying to do like a 619, but like her body was still planted on the ring. And as she's coming back down to the floor on the outside, Toni's on her hands and knees on the floor trying to get back up, and Rhea just casually, as she comes down to the floor, her left leg goes to the floor. Her right leg, she just hits Toni in the back with a really sharp, short kick, just to get that extra little bit of damage in. And I'm just like, that's beautiful. Just that little bit of extra right there is just all you need for to really show that she's got that heel mannerism down. Every little bit of damage that she can hit, she's gonna hit. She's gonna punish Toni as much as she can. And it was, from there, it was a lot of back and forth from there. Rhea just working the back the whole match, every spot that she could get where she could shove Toni into the barricade or into the ring apron or put her into the turnbuckles, anything that she could do to get more damage on the back, she would do. And Toni was, meanwhile trying to mount her comebacks and trying to, get as much in as she could to, regain her footing and get her offense back. The end of the match came when Toni was in the middle of, making her path to victory, and she gets out of an attempt at the Riptide and sets Rhea up for a Storm Zero, and she goes to lift Rhea up, and her back gives out on her, and she can't lift Rhea up. Rhea immediately grabs Tony and capitalizes, sets her back up for Riptide again, and hits it, and covers 1, 2, 3. Match is over, and your first NXT UK Women's Champion is Rhea Ripley at the age of 22 years old, and already one of the best young stars that this company has. She is something to see, and it's awesome to see her developing and to see her grow and to see her become something that you can't help but watch, because she's got the character work down, she's got the ring work down, and everything that she's doing right now is just all-star level material. So if you have not been keeping up with NXT UK, I highly recommend you check it out, because the match quality on NXT UK is great. The characters are great for a show that's in its infancy. It is well worth the watch, even with its weird broadcast times. And the matches that were in this tournament leading up to the NXT UK Women's Championship match here, all great matches. 8 young stars. Some of them are not young stars, but 8 stars of the scene, the worldwide scene, not just the British wrestling scene, but 8 stars of the worldwide scene who have all made huge impressions and all really are worth watching the show for. Absolutely. So that is matches of the week. And it looks like Taker is having some internet issues. So
yeah, it looks like it's just you and me, pal.
All right. So for now, we will continue on, and we're going to start off with some coverage on New Japan and World Tag League, which started up just after our last show 2 weeks ago. Have you caught any of World Tag League so far, Biff?
I missed the start of it, but I have been trying to get caught up over the last day or so. And so I'm kind of getting back into the groove of things. Mostly I've been kind of salivating over the January 4 show, to be completely honest. January is where it's really at for me, but this has been a pretty good little appetizer to kind of get you through the last couple months until we get to January when things pick back up again. So,
well, we have there's back. Taker's back. Welcome back.
Yep, I told you I'd be back in a flash.
Yep, well done, sir. All right, I don't think you haven't caught any of World Tag League, have you, Taker?
No, sir, I have not.
All right. Well, if you are connected to New Japan World, I highly recommend that you get caught up on some of these matches, because there have been some tag team classics going on over in New Japan. The standings right now are pretty good idea of of the tag team scene in the heavyweight division in New Japan, and it's about what you would expect. It's pretty much what George and I also predicted when we first gave our look at the World Tag League roster. At the top of the standings right now are the representatives of Los Ingobernables de Japón, Sonata and Evil, sitting pretty in first place with 12 points. They have only lost 1 match out of the 7 that they have had so far, and they have 6 more to go. So if they can keep up the momentum, they are for sure going to be in the picture for the finals. Then we have a 3-way tie for second, featuring 2 teams that we expected to be up there and 1 team that we are kind of surprised to see. Tomohiro Ishii and Toru Yano from Chaos are in that 10-point deadlock, as well as your current reigning and defending IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Champions, the Gorillas of Destiny, Tama Tonga and Tanga Loa. And surprisingly, also making their way into that 10-point block there, we have the Suzuki Gun team of Zack Sabre Jr. and Taichi, which I was not really expecting. Of all the Suzuki Gun teams to be in this tournament, because there are 3 of them, I was just not expecting it to be Zack Sabre and Taichi to be the team that is standing out. But lo and behold, here they are. And they're looking pretty good so far. 2 matches lost, but they are the only team so far to have defeated Evil and Sonata. So there may be something there. We'll see. The other big story of World Tag League right now is if the Young Lion team of Ayato Yoshida and Shota Umino will be able to pick up a win at all. They are currently in last place. They have not won a single match yet, but they have definitely had their fair share of good strong fights. They had a good 12-minute run against the veteran team of Hiroyoshi Tenzin and Satoshi Kojima, Tenkozy. Had a great 12-minute match with the veterans there, and it could be interesting to see what they have in store as they take on some of the other veteran teams like Yuji Nagata and Manabu Nakanishi, or the Killer Elite Squad, Lance Archer and Davey Boy Smith Jr. So still some exciting tag team wrestling to go. Again, the tournament is about half over. What are you guys' thoughts so far?
Well, I'm gonna second what you said on the Suzuki Gun team. Look, I am on record. I know this might get my wrestling nerd card revoked. I'm not a huge fan of Zack Sabre Jr.
That's fair.
I respect him for what he can do technically. He is a freaking wizard when it comes to just, the fluidity of his movements in the ring. I've always felt like missing something from being kind of like that upper echelon star. But with all due respect, Taichi and Zack Sabre Jr., I'm glad that they're doing well. Probably even a more unpopular opinion. I absolutely cannot stand Toru Yano.
Actually, that's not an unpopular opinion. It's just he is one of those people that you either love him or you do not want to ever see him.
Right. He's like Grado from Britain. It's either he's the greatest thing since sliced bread, or he's like,
he's absolute shit.
Yeah, he's ass flu. And Yano for me is just complete utter garbage. I don't like the fact that Yano are in position here to be challenging for this win. I think it makes, perfect sense for Sonata and Evil to kind of run away with this, because honestly, of all the major factions in New Japan right now, Los Ingobernables is really the only faction that's, got any sort of stability. So from, the storyline perspective, I like the fact that Sonata and Evil are kind of, cakewalking their way through so far. Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa being in the mix helps further the Bullet Club storyline that's going on with them, giving them a nice little run. Nice to see Juice Robinson and David Finlay having a semi-decent run.
Yes.
They're kind of in the middle of the pack right now, but it's still at the point where anything can really happen.
Yeah, they could easily make a run, towards the end here. They've got some matchups that could lead to them getting a good spot heading into the finals.
Yeah, and so outside of my continued man crush on Minoru Suzuki, I'm enjoying it. I do think, honestly, that the tag team scene in New Japan has been, I don't want to say a letdown from years past, because I've never truly appreciated the tag team scene in New Japan like I have some of their other divisions. But I will say that I'm not like super enthralled with Yano and Ishii. I'm not really enthralled with Tonga and Tangaloa. Archer and Davey Boy Smith Jr., obviously, they have pretty good chemistry, Killer Elite Squad. But, it's one of those deals where I think if you enjoy quality wrestling in-ring work and you don't need the storyline to get invested, this is really your jam. It's just good quality tag team wrestling.
Well, they do have some storylines involved in this, and some of it is actually interesting, because some of this is actually some pretty good callbacks to tag leagues of years past. If you think back to World Tag League from 2 years ago, 2016, leading into Wrestle Kingdom 11, that we had the three-way tag team match with the Guerrillas of Destiny, Great Bash Heel, and the Ishii and Yano team from Chaos, kind of shoehorning their way in there through Yano's BS of stealing the belts and the World Tag League trophies. And then that winding up leading to them winning the tag belts at Wrestle Kingdom 11 that year. That was still one of my favorite tag team matches of all time, just for the sheer ridiculousness of the banter going on during the match. But I can definitely understand what you're saying, Biff, about Yano not being everybody's thing. And I'm surprised though that you have love for the KES, but not for the Gorillas, honestly. Because I mean, they're on at least for me, I would say in terms of chemistry, I'd say they're on equal footing with each other in terms of being a tag team unit.
I think this might be my desire not to be murderballed by Minoru Suzuki showing through. It might be playing into it. That's no disrespect to the Gorillas of Destiny. Absolutely no disrespect, because I've always been fascinated with the look of the tag team.
Yeah, Biff, you don't want Haku showing up at your door.
Yeah, that's the other thing,
Well, at least Haku I could maybe run away from. Suzuki has no problem just, shooting your ass.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like, how do you want to die? Do you want to die by, 1,000 chops or a shotgun blast to the dome? So
that's true.
But
the Gorillas don't play.
No, they don't. And I'm not and by all means, I am not disrespecting them. I am.
Oh, no, of course.
Gorillas of Destiny forming a kind of a 4-man troupe with the Usos and WWE would be.
Oh my God,
Vince McMahon's dream match.
Please.
So
hell, have them form a faction together, please.
Yeah, please.
Yeah,
I'm all about that.
Take all my money, please.
Yeah, bring Roman Reigns back out to that group to be the figurehead. Watch the Rook go banana. So
yeah,
But
they would go banana.
I can sum up my Yano hate in one simple sentence. I don't think he carries the New Japan aesthetic well. He's a comedy wrestler in a promotion that doesn't do comedy wrestling nearly as well as... Well, no, let me rephrase that. He's a comedy wrestler in a promotion that's best taken seriously.
Fair. That is absolutely fair.
That's the best way to put it. They do comedy wrestling from time to time. And, obviously the funniest thing in wrestling history is Prince Devitt, Captain New Japan, that promo that he cut backstage where he's dropping F-bombs gratuitously. Mm-hmm. But in general, New Japan kind of has this, especially over the last 10 years, has this reputation for being the highest quality wrestling in the world. Wrestling as performance art, as a legitimate athletic exhibition where the best of the best of the best are competing. And then you've got Toru Yano, who is basically a WWE character out there. It's some people like the change up in styles, but if I want to watch it's not for me. If I want to watch a bad comedy wrestler, I'll watch Raw.
Fair enough.
So
I don't have anybody. I don't have real stake in this World Tag League because I don't have in New Japan the world, so I can't watch it. Mm-hmm. Second, I'm not as into New Japan wrestling as to say you are, Chris, George, and Biff for that matter. However, listening to what you're saying, you guys both have your choices. And, you mentioned something very interesting, Biff, and you said this on Monday, or no, George said this on Monday. NJPW is more sport than what, the NJPW is wrestling presented as a sport, whereas WWE is wrestling presented as sports entertainment.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what, why I keep saying is WWE take a page out of NJPW's book, go back to showing it more as a sport.
Mm-hmm.
Enough with the promos, enough with the, and the bad promos at that.
Yeah.
Putting people on the mic that shouldn't be on the mic.
Yeah.
Or scripting said promos to the point that they make the people look like absolute idiots. Let them be themselves.
I don't, Taker, I don't know how well versed you are with the 90s All Japan heavyweight scene, if you have any memories of that. But
no, I don't have very many memories of that. George may appreciate this. Chris, you might appreciate this. I don't know if you have a fandom stretching back that far, but
the last decade of New Japan, really the Tanahashi-Okada era, let's say, when Tanahashi started getting hot and started kind of rebuilding New Japan's reputation, we've been on a run qualitatively over the last couple of years that's really kind of measuring up a lot to that Four Pillars era of All Japan's heavyweight scene in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
When you had Kawada and Misawa and Kobashi just, tearing down the houses and putting on, all-time great matches. And then you see what Okada has done. He's breaking Dave Meltzer's star rating scale, and Kenny Omega is getting mainstream publicity despite not being in the WWE. It's, this qualitative run that New Japan's been on is, really remarkable. It's one of the all-time great runs for a company. And so, for WWE to look to other sources for inspiration, absolutely. You pillage New Japan's storytelling style in terms of treating the matches seriously, taking it, as, an important spectacle. That's the one thing that WWE lacks right now. Nothing matters.
Yep.
Absolutely nothing matters. This tag league, in the grand scheme of the year for New Japan, is not that big of a deal. I mean, this is peanuts compared to the G1. It's peanuts compared to Wrestle Kingdom. It's peanuts to Dominion, for that matter.
Yeah, they put World Tag League in the kind of the death slot of the year when it's like the build up to the Dome is happening. So it's like everybody's focus is everywhere. They can't, even with World Tag League going on, there's still a lot of focus on what's going on with all the singles belts too. So it's hard to, to just put the laser on World Tag League. It's not like it is with the G1, where if the G1 is going on, that's all that's going on.
Yeah, that's the cream de la creme. But even now, the World Tag League, it does have, a sense of purpose. It does have meaning. Whereas, I compare the World Tag League to Survivor Series, where a Survivor Series is full of stunt booking and gimmicks, and nothing that happened at Survivor Series for the most part mattered in the long term. Virtually everything that happened at Survivor Series was almost laughed off and forgotten within 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
which is in and of itself a sad state of affairs.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So.
That is entirely true, yes. My take on World Tag League, and again, just kind of wrap it up here. When George and I discussed it, we said, we're hoping for a finals that is Sonata and Evil versus the Guerrillas, and that is still my hope. And I like what they're doing with this World Tag League, apart from the involvement of literal human shit being in it, and for Jeff Cobb still being saddled with him. Apart from that, this World Tag League has been a really good experience of tag team wrestling. As you said, Biff, it is more just about what's going on in the ring. There's not as much storytelling to it. But I'm okay with that because, in the grand scheme of things for tournaments for New Japan, the G1 is the place to sell all the story, because you need to start weaving those stories at that point in time to get everything lined up for the Dome when the Dome comes around. That's where you start the storytelling, because New Japan, as we've established, is the company for the long-term storytelling. If you want long-term stories, that's where you go. So kind of letting the storytelling take a back seat, or having pre-existing stories be woven into this as they go through the tournament is fine for me. I think that in the end, whatever match we end up getting at the Dome for the titles, for whoever wins, whoever wins World Tag League, and for whenever when we get to the Dome and we get to see who's going to challenge the Guerrillas for the belts, I'm sure it's going to be an absolutely awesome spectacle. It's going to be a great showing, and I think it's you're not going to find a better tag team match than what you're going to see at the Dome. If it's one of these three teams that's challenging the Guerrillas, it's like, because the Guerrillas are the fourth team that's in the top bracket right now. If it's any one of these other three teams that's challenging the Guerrillas, I'm sure it's going to be a great match. Even with the possibility of one of those teams being Sabre and Taichi. I'm pretty sure that Zack Sabre will do enough crazy shit in the ring to make up for Taichi just being shit. So I'm sure it'll be fine. Ishii and Yano, they have a long track record of having great matches with the Gorillas that are based around Yano doing his crazy character work and Ishii just being a beast. And I covered last year's finals of World Tag League when it was Sonata and Evil versus the Gorillas as my match of the week 2 weeks ago, and that was an awesome match that maybe was overbooked a bit. So if we got to see that match again, and if that wound up being the match that happens at the Dome, but without all of the overbooking, I would be 1,000% okay with that. So.
And as you said that, I have to apologize to the wrestling gods right now because I just had the most offensive and disgusting but strangely applicable comparison to New Japan's schedule for someone that doesn't follow New Japan regularly. I have to apologize. Even though I haven't said it out loud, I just feel like I need to apologize because I was about to compare it to NASCAR.
Oh, God.
I think I can make this work, though. Listen, I can make this work. Think about it. One of the great things about New Japan, if you don't follow it regularly, is that New Japan does not require you to have a weekly commitment to the product. You can go, several weeks at a time without having to be too awful invested because there's not a whole lot going on. They're more preoccupied with tours, the big events that are scattered throughout the year, your tournaments, and everything. But I want you to focus on this because, Taker, I know you've watched NASCAR, so you can probably compare this on the NASCAR side of things. We start the New Japan year with the big show in the Tokyo Dome, the Wrestle Kingdom. It is the creme de la creme. It doesn't get any bigger. That's the start of your year.
Yep.
Okay. Well, in NASCAR, you start with the preeminent race of the year, the Daytona 500. It's the best race of the year. That's the one race that everyone tries to win. It's the start of the calendar year. It's your Super Bowl to start off the season. Okay. Now, on New Japan's schedule, you go from the January 4th show to the New Beginning, which is generally in February, and you can have that split up in a couple of different locations: Osaka, Sapporo. Sometimes they're in Sendai, but this is equivalent to some of the famous spring races in NASCAR when they'll go to Bristol or Martinsville or Talladega. But then the next big thing on the New Japan schedule really isn't until June when you get to Dominion.
Mm-hmm.
Dominion has kind of become almost the big summer slam type event for the company, kind of the summer counterpoint to Wrestle Kingdom. I mean, just this past year, we saw the IWGP Heavyweight Championship change hands. Kenny Omega finally claiming that title from Kazuchika Okada at Dominion.
Yep.
That's equivalent to me to the July Daytona race when the playoff push really starts in NASCAR. Then you got the G1, which is essentially NASCAR's playoff in and of itself. It's setting up the big winner, that's going to move on and kind of headline the next season of shows. Whoever wins the G1, generally is going to be in the main event picture for the next year, whether it's Naito or Omega or Tanahashi in this case.
Mm-hmm.
After that, you gotta, just slow down a little bit during the year. Most of the rest of the year doesn't really have that much of an impact. Then you get to the World Tag League, which is almost, like Speed Weeks. It's just kind of an appetizer to get you set up for January 4th. And then as soon as we hit the Tokyo Dome, it's back at it again. So yeah, that NASCAR when it worked versus New Japan, it's kind of similar.
Yeah.
Where you don't have to follow every single week during a calendar year. There are up and down periods, but sometimes you need the break. Whereas WWE running 52 weeks a year, if 48 of those weeks are pure crap, then you're being assailed with crap for the whole year. New Japan, you get 30 weeks of quality programming in a given year and 22 weeks off to wish that you had more New Japan.
Indeed.
Well, That was the most convoluted pile of crap answer ever on this show. I apologize.
No. It works. It works. Trust me. We've made weirder comparisons before on this show. So I am perfectly fine with that.
I am not under the influence of medicinal supplements. I'm just letting you know now. That sadly was a product of Biff Kensington's demented mind. So, cheers, everyone.
Yeah, I'm fine with it. Taker is still having some issues. He's trying to get it fixed up. His computer is being weird, but he's trying to get it fixed up. In the meantime, we're gonna move on to our recap coverage for WWE for events that happened a little less than 2 weeks ago. We'll start off with TakeOver War Games, and then we'll move on to Survivor Series. I'm going to try and keep these recaps, kind of brief because, again, these events are, almost 2 weeks old, and they've already been covered by a lot of other outlets. So it's really just, going to be getting to our thoughts. But we'll start with TakeOver War Games, and we will start with the opening match of Shayna Baszler versus Kairi Sane in a 2 out of 3 falls match for the NXT Women's Championship.
I made it back just in time.
Welcome back. Glad that you got back. Taker, you already expressed this to me, and Biff, I'm going to pose the question to you. Do you think that they made the wrong decision in strapping Shayna again, or keeping the strap on Shayna, I should say?
They made the problem is putting the title on Shayna at Evolution.
Mm-hmm.
That I did not agree with, because I think Shayna Baszler is ready to come up, and they need her up on the main roster desperately right now. There's so much talent behind Shayna in NXT that she's almost done enough, and it's time for her to go. But be that as it may, once you've made your bed, you need to lay in it. If you take the title right back off of Shayna, you're hot-shotting the title, and that is not a good look. The one thing that NXT prided itself on is taking its championship seriously and giving them meaning. There's not a single title on the main roster right now, with the possible exception of the Intercontinental title, that has any sort of cachet with the fans. They don't mean anything. They're just
Biff, I can beg to differ with you on that.
No, you can't say the Women's Championship on SmackDown, because that's not they don't care about the title, they care about the champion.
But the thing about it is the champion makes the title. The title don't make the champion. Remember that.
Yeah, I will agree with Taker on that one, because you gotta remember, Biff, that the fans were clamoring like crazy for Becky to win that title. And there was that collective sense of dread that people had that they were just going to have her drop the title to Charlotte at Evolution. So
I just stand corrected on that front. I will give you all that one.
Because even myself, Chris, more than once I said it's time for Becky to have another run.
Yeah,
they needed to do something to save the division, and now they've done it.
But I think the overall point still works, in the sense though that the titles that are on the main roster have largely been devalued. Most of them don't have the value they should. That doesn't mean they don't have any value. It's just that the WWE Championship should be the top of the line, not a mid-card title like it has been this year.
Yeah.
The Universal Championship is just never there, so it doesn't mean anything. The tag titles have been so, just diminished. NXT prides itself on keeping its titles relevant and meaningful, and the one thing that kills a title's value more than anything else is hot-shotting it. I thought that it was way too soon to put the title back on Shayna Baszler. I thought Kairi Sane deserved a longer run, but once you've made that decision, you can't have the title go right back onto Kairi Sane, because then it's stunt booking.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Yeah, and as I had said at the time that we were previewing this show, that strapping Shayna was a foolhardy move.
I agreed with you on that. Yeah. I agree, even though I wasn't there. I'm sitting there going, and I believe in the chat I said, "That's right. It's just stay with Kyrie. Let Kyrie run the division for a while."
Yeah, and we're seeing again, the same thing that we talked about, continues to be a thing that now that Shayna has the belt again, she already was the unbeatable heel, and now she has goons to go with it. So, now she's even more unbeatable as it is, to the point where this week on NXT we had to have a segment, a backstage talk segment of Kairi, Io, and Dakota Kai announcing that they were wanting to take on the Horsewomen as a unit, as a three woman unit. And obviously that's not going to happen right now with Kairi coming down with hand, foot, and mouth disease. Hopefully she heals up from that quickly. But it was
that's been a rather been a plague around here in the United States as of late.
Yeah, and it was apparently that they were wanting to be cautious enough about it that they kept her off of the TV tapings that happened between yesterday and today. So I am very disappointed in that being a thing. We're not going to get into any other spoilers. I only mentioned that just because of the fact that that was a medical concern.
Right.
But now that happened, how we're going to be 2 more months until we can revisit this, because if Kyrie's off TV that whole time, how do you then go about addressing this unless they decide to film some sort of like backstage stuff that happens just to keep the storyline going a little bit here and there, and then what do you do otherwise with the belt during that course of time? So overall, this just was not a good timing decision on the part of WWE and NXT.
Well, and to touch on something else, the Becky having the women's title again. It's got and guess what happens? She's injured yet again. What is it? I'm trying to figure this out. What is it with titles and people getting injured?
You think
about it. And the thing about it, you said, Biff, is that the main roster has made the titles, well, with the exception of, I'm saying, two, the IC on Raw and the women's title on SmackDown, irrelevant. Yeah, they made everything irrelevant, tried to make the Universal title the most important title by giving it to who?
Well, I mean...
Yeah, well, that's another story for another time.
Come on now.
I mean, in the end, I think that a lot of this, I mean, a lot of it is just coincidentally bad timing. But the fact of the matter is, and I've said this before, and I will stick by this to my dying day, WWE works its performers way too hard and puts way too much value on these whole ideas of like house shows and all this other stuff that's really in the long run, I mean, yeah, I'm sure that it does end up making them some money, but in the long run, is it really that vital for them to be running schedules where their performers are basically out there 320 nights a year or more? It's absolutely mind-boggling to me that they would think that it's beneficial to run their people into the ground when they need to have their people in tip-top shape for TV, which is their primary cash cow.
Yeah, and that is what's so bad. When did this whole thing change? Okay, the question I have is, when did it all change? And Biff, I'm going to bring up something that is near and dear to your heart. And I mean, this was Mid-Atlantic Wrestling, Georgia Championship Wrestling, all of the TV shows built to the house shows. Now the house shows and pay-per-views built to TV. Why? When did they go backwards? When did it change? When did they flip the script?
Vince McMahon in the 90s, when he proved that you could make more money off TV rights and syndication and marketing than you could the actual house show gates.
Which was asinine.
Well, that's, I mean, look, the schedule is rough that they work today. But nobody here is under any illusion to that.
No, not working not work. They're not working 8 spots in 7 days anymore.
Yeah, but that's what I was about to say. They're not. It's not so much that the schedule is too tough. It's that the schedule's toughness has not appreciated at the same level as the work rate has increased. Like back in the Crockett days, you could wrestle 380, 390 matches a year, but you weren't doing tope, con hilos outside of the ring every night. You weren't doing power bombs and suicide dives and all of this high impact stuff that wears out your knees and everything.
This is true.
So while you had the attrition in the 80s and people taking time off, because of the insane work schedule, now they're working, 60, 70 matches less a year, but the work inside these matches is still so demanding and so high that they might as well be working 380, 390 nights a year.
Mm-hmm.
Or 380, 390 matches. So,
yeah. And on top of that too, like it's silly to me that they feel the need to present the live product to so many audiences when at the same time they're also trying to push this whole digital media bit and putting the focus on the Twitter page, the YouTube page, the network, and trying to get people to consume it there. It's like there's only so much wrestling that you can consume over the course of a week, a month, a year, and if you're trying to get people to consume it in literally every single venue possible like this, people are going to get burned out and are not going to care as much, and they're going to start paying less and less attention over time. So it's counterproductive to me that they continue to work their performers on this insane degree and also ask people to be tuned in to all the digital outlets as well.
Yeah, and it's a known fact lately that I have not watched any Raw or SmackDown in weeks.
Nor have I. Although even though we did not watch, we are going to talk about this week's Raw. Because we have the Cliff Notes version of it, and we're fine to react to these things even without having seen them live ourselves. And but that's for later.
Yeah, but it's funny. Mm-hmm. I could go from pay-per-view to pay-per-view and not miss anything.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah, because nothing matters. It's all the same.
That's the thing. I think nothing matters.
It's like George never left. Because you guys are saying the exact same things that he says, and you're right. I mean, we have all come to this conclusion. I'm pretty sure anybody that is watching the show on a regular basis comes to that conclusion as well. Nothing matters right now because nobody is,
management don't give a shit.
Yeah, nobody feels the need to be invested, beyond, getting from big show to big show. Even the smaller level pay-per-views are basically considered irrelevant at this point.
Right. Well, here's the thing. Here's the problem. Here's the crux of the issue. Okay, as I see it, you got management and upper management in WWE that has zero fucks given. Okay, and now we have the fans who are falling into the Rhea Ripley zero fucks given realm.
Mm-hmm.
So why if the fans are not giving a shit and Vince is not giving a shit, why should I give a shit?
Exactly. Well said.
It's the point where it's like it's the same group, the same 8 to 10 people every week after week. It's the same ones you see on TV. Baron Corbin, Alexa Bliss, please, enough already. Give us something new.
I'm going to tell you something though, and this is why people holding their breath for change are wasting their time. WWE is in the midst of its most profitable run ever. There's no business sense for them to change what they're doing, because what do they really do on a yearly basis? They have a template that they follow, and when they're done with one set of feuds or programs, they just cycle other people in and out. You know what?
But they haven't been doing that, Biff.
Yes, they have. Yes, they have.
No, they haven't.
You mean? I think you guys are talking about the same thing, but taking different approaches to it. To be honest, like I hear what you're saying, Biff, and I agree with you. There is a lot of repetition But I also understand what Taker is saying, that, you know, the execution of said repetition has been lacking, to say the least. You can run as many authority figure versus babyface programs as you want. Nothing is ever going to replicate Steve Austin versus the Corporation, or even Daniel Bryan versus the Authority.
Oh, right. Yeah.
We're not going to get anything like that.
Man. Nothing's going to top Steve Austin versus McMahon. Nothing.
No. And I think they know that on some level. That's
But
not.
Then why are they forcing it down our throat?
Because
they don't want to put in any effort.
Well, it's a safe business model. They've turned the brand into the draw versus individual stars.
And they've also made it such that the fans being invested doesn't matter as much, because they can draw in so many advertisers and outside sponsors for things that it doesn't matter if they are losing, if fans are losing interest or not. You know, hence Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Well, yeah, that's exactly
Matt Rogers says it best. Matt Rogers says it best.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right, Matt. Yeah,
he is absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
That is
again, and we will get to that. We will get to that on Raw. Believe me.
Wow.
And I want to be unequivocally clear here. I am not defending WWE in the slightest.
I know you're not.
They are completely, apathetic. It's just insipidly bad programming. But one reason that I think people need to be looking at alternatives to WWE is because there is no financial necessity for WWE to change things up at the moment. Now, if ratings depreciate at a faster level than the industry average for a long enough curve, then yes, I think there will be the start of an impetus for WWE to reevaluate the way they do things. But right now, the industry average TV ratings are down between 9 and 12%. WWE is down 15% from where they were a year ago, which is steep, but it's still close enough to the bell curve where they could say, well, you got cord cutters, we're doing great numbers on social media, blah, blah, blah. And look here at our bottom line. We're on the course to have the most profitable year we've ever had. So if you're WWE financially, why take the risk of changing things up when you're already making more money now than you ever had before? It sucks as a fan, but it's the reality of the situation. WWE has no reason financially to change, and that's the only reason they would change.
Which is, and again, that is trash, but that is reality, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's the sad, sorry truth. It really is.
Yeah. Anyway, we got way off topic there and jumped ahead quite a bit. Let's get back to War Games. We actually skipped a match here. Matt Riddle made his takeover debut and knocked out Cassius Ohno in 7 seconds. Good decision or bad decision for Riddle to debut in that fashion, do you think?
Bad, because now the fans are going to expect him to have matches quick and painless.
I mean, people who are unfamiliar with his work, yes, they might expect that. Yes,
right. And most of your fans down in Orlando are the smartest of smarts.
Mm-hmm.
They understand what Riddle can do. It's the casual fans are going to be like, "Who the hell is this guy?"
Mm-hmm.
No real build, no real nothing that I was aware of. He had just signed 2 weeks prior.
Well, he's not it was actually a couple of months, but
they had no real build up to him.
They gave him some hype videos, and he had a match on an episode of NXT where it was kind of just your typical debut match. And NXT has not done a good debut match for a new star in quite some time. The last great debut match they had for somebody was Shinsuke Nakamura's debut against Sami Zayn 2 years ago.
Oh, God, that was a match.
Yeah, that was a great match. But since then, they have not given anybody the sort of debut that they deserve or need to have to be built up, to start their build up as to being a big star. So,
and I will defend NXT partially on this front. They have been building up the Ono Riddle program for a while now. because that was a spinoff of the Aleister Black investigation storyline that was running all fall, and it's been building up. If you've been watching the regular programming on NXT, you knew that something was going to happen eventually, because they've done a good job alluding to the fact that Ono has got a chip on his shoulder with all these new hot starts coming in, and dropping the bro line obviously is pointing at Matt Riddle. He also took shots at Keith Lee because apparently Cassius Ono would like to commit ritualistic suicide by an angry wrestler that could tear his head off. But I have absolutely no problem with what they did with Matt Riddle at TakeOver War Games, because it wasn't advertised.
I don't either. That was not. It was an unadvertised match, that's fine.
It was a good way to get the crowd hot, that's for sure. And rather than having the first thing that happened be Kyrie losing, to Shayna via BS. That's I'm definitely think that was the right way to open the show. But it could have been. I will also say it could have been a little bit more of an exhibition for Riddle's skills, since his debut match on NXT TV was lacking. But I can't really set my expectations too high anymore, because that's just what NXT does now. That's just the format of their shows, because their roster is just so fucking bloated that they don't have the time or the inclination to give anybody that sort of standout when they're first coming in.
Quick question for the class.
Yeah.
We know Matt Riddle wrestles barefoot.
Mm-hmm.
Hence, when he gets called up to the main roster, will he be putting on boots a la Rusev?
I hope not. I mean, that's kind of his aesthetic, but as we've discussed here in the past, the main roster doesn't really care about what happens to people in NXT, and nor do they really put the effort into trying to, build on anything that NXT has done. Nor do they particularly care about, keeping intact the legacy that people have.
Right.
So, who knows? Who knows at this point? But either way, I mean, if Vince is still running the show and Matt Riddle makes the main roster, Matt Riddle's going to be a fucking joke before all is said and done. Because he does not do well delivering scripted promos, and Vince will just have him get eaten alive because of that. Because that's all Vince cares about, is your ability to deliver his scripted promos.
Yep.
Aleister Black defeated Johnny Gargano.
Right man won.
Yes, right man won.
Great match.
Yes, very good match.
Yes, it was.
Tommaso Ciampa defeated Velveteen Dream to retain the NXT Championship.
My thoughts were this. Mm-hmm. My hope was this. Patrick Clark, Velveteen Dream, strap him up. He could perform in the ring. We all know this. The man has got the in-ring down. He's got the character work down now with his Dream character. I mean,
his in-ring could stand to be a little bit better, but yes, he does have with time the ring work will get to the level it needs to be for him to be a main event level star.
Right.
And the character work is second to none. Absolutely.
Yeah. Him and Rhea Ripley are right there, 1-2.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like to equate Patrick Clark to a 1988 Steak. The character is there. Now give him another 2 or 3 years of seasoning in the ring, and oh my God. He is going to be, just like the absolute treasure trove of the WWE. They're going to make so much money off of this guy. It's not even funny, because look at the last 5 minutes. Him up. You know what? Patrick Clark, he has so much charisma, so much. He has that it factor. There are certain people that can be held down for a while, but eventually the cream rises to the top. Even WWE screwing Patrick Clark up, and diminishing 50% of his value, 50% value of Patrick Clark over the next 15 years is still going to make them a lot of money.
And it'll still be better than 100% of some of the people that they have up there right now.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Like, Patrick Clark is almost too good to mess up.
Almost.
Completely. Almost.
Mm-hmm.
I say that, and he could be the next Rico Constantino. So...
Yeah, I mean, they very easily could decide to take this gimmick and
He could be the next Ric Flair if he's handled right.
Yeah, but they could very easily just take this gimmick and just go full politically incorrect with it and wind up ruining it because
or they could go full on. They could go full on gold dust to turn him into a comedic character.
Yeah. But even still, though, I think that this was a better match than I expected it to be, and the right man won still. So
yeah,
it was a great match. I mean, I'm not going to fault it.
Yeah.
The last 5 minutes of that match were some of the most fun I've had in an NXT match all year.
Mm-hmm.
The crowd was just going apoplectic when he hit that last elbow, and they thought this could be it, and he kicked out, and then he immediately rushed up to hit the elbow on the apron and crashed and burned, and people are like, "Oh, that's the end." But what an ending! It's like a blaze of glory.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
Yep.
And then finally, the main event: Pete Dunne, Ricochet, and the War Raiders defeated the Undisputed Era in the War Games match. Better than last year's War Games, definitely. And the thing with the baby faces all stopping Pete Dunne from getting in the ring at the beginning, as the match progressive. What?
You mean the heels?
Well, no. Like like
you said the baby faces kept Pete Dunne from getting. Oh, yeah, they wouldn't let him in. They wanted him to go in last, right?
Yeah,
right.
They wanted him to go in last, and like the Raiders kept like like shoving their way out of the cages first. That I thought was very well orchestrated. And overall, I think that again, the right team won here, and I like that they have sold it such that like the match did so much damage to these dudes that like they are just not the same afterwards. Like that was something that they failed to do after last year's War Games. To really sell the intensity of the match in the aftermath. They've done a good job of that here.
Well, if you notice when with the whole flipping of the coin that we knew the heels won.
Yeah.
When the first time that they opened the cage door for the heels, all three of them tried to get out.
Yeah.
Throw it back to what happened last year because they screwed it up big time last year.
Mm-hmm.
They were letting the whole team in there, which is not how it's supposed to work.
Yeah, that was not a well scripted War Games match at all.
No.
And I say that as somebody who, at the time of watching last year's War Games, didn't really have any familiarity with how War Games is supposed to be structured and whatnot. So
this was probably the closest you'll get to a classic style War Games match in NXT.
Yeah.
The only thing that's still missing is the roof.
Mm-hmm.
And the blood. Yeah, you need the blood of the roof.
You need the color and the roof to make it right.
Yeah. Now, what I will say though, as somebody who again doesn't have necessarily the greatest amount of familiarity with War Games from the past, I will say that this should not be something they do every year. I really think that they're going to wear out their welcome with this if they try to keep running this every single year. As a regular event, I think that it's just not going to end up panning out well for them. And it's going to lose its impact. War Games is not a style of match that you can do, even on a yearly basis and have it be, considered a big deal. Like we've seen what has happened with regards to Hell in a Cell and how Hell in a Cell has just diminished so greatly in its significance because of how they've overdone it to this degree.
Yeah, I think they could get one more year out of it in NXT if they gimmick it up again. And by gimmicking it up, I think the natural way to go would be to have the first ever women's War Games match, where
that would be the very first, because even NWA or Mid Atlantic Jim Crockett Promotions did not have one.
No, that would have been blasphemy.
There's not been a women's War Games at all.
No, that would have been blasphemy.
Really?
So
You call it blasphemy, really?
In Crockett era, to put the women in the War Games match, yeah.
That's true. Yeah,
that's what it would. That's the Crockett. That's exactly what it would have been in there. It's blasphemy.
Yeah, because in War Games in Crockett, everybody was expected to bleed. and bleed copious. I mean, tap an artery, take your Advil, go get blood transfusions at the hospital after the match type of bloodbath. Mm-hmm. Whereas, if they had said, Missy Hyatt, go get into War Games match, people would have been like, what? But no, in 2018, in the absence of blood, and I think with the women's wrestling, kind of elevating its game each and every year, it's getting better and better, and I think the quality is raising so high. I think that next year you could do a women's War Games match where you have the MMA horsewomen, if they're still around, and some of their friends taking on babyface coalition. You have Tegan Knox back at Dakota Kai. You'd have Io Shirai and Kairi Sane around still, presumably. So I think you could still gimmick it another year. After that, it needs to be more sparing. You're absolutely right, because you don't want to turn it into Hell in a Cell where it's just expected.
Yep, exactly.
All
right. And that'll do it for War Games. Overall rating on the show in terms of other takeovers that have happened this year from both of you.
That's tough because this year has been such a good year for takeovers. I would say, I would probably grade it out as A minus overall quality, and then as far as the year goes, I would probably have it as the third best of the year, behind New Orleans and Philadelphia, slightly ahead of Chicago and Brooklyn, maybe. But there's not been a bad takeover this year, as far as I'm concerned. So.
Yep. Taker, your thoughts? Taker. Oh, he went to grab a cup of coffee. Okay. Well, I will wait for him to get back. In the meantime, I will say I would agree with that assessment. I would actually put this slightly ahead of TakeOver Philadelphia. But only because of the fact that, like, for me personally, and this is entirely personal preference. I feel like the TakeOver Philadelphia card was carried very strongly by the main event match with Almas and Gargano, which was easily one of the best matches the WWE has had, like, in forever. Yeah. But the rest of the card left a bit to be desired in some aspects. There were still some absolutely great matches on that card. The Ember Moon Shayna Baszler match comes to mind immediately. But like there were also some matches on that card that definitely left something to be desired. It's like Velveteen Dream versus Cassius Ohno.
Was you a fan of the Adam Cole Aleister Black match? I thought that was probably match of the night until Almas and Gargano got out there.
See, my thing about the Black Cole match is that I feel like a lot of that match was reliant on like the big momentum shifting moments and like the pieces in between those momentum shifting moments, a la the what do you call it? The springboard into the super kick. Which was, one of the greatest spots that's ever been choreographed. But the moments in between those momentum shifts, they did not leave very much room for improvement beyond those momentum shift moments. Like they kind of coasted between the momentum shifts, I think. And that's mostly because Adam Cole is, just okay in the ring.
More of a good spot fest as opposed to a good match is basically.
Yeah.
Got you. Okay.
So that was War Games. Taker, now that you are returned, give me your thoughts on this takeover overall and how you think it ranks against other takeovers from this year.
To me, this takeover was kind of lackluster overall. It was the matches seemed a bit overbooked at points for some of them. Mm-hmm. And you know me, I don't like overbooking. I don't like a lot of flippy do shit.
Yeah.
I like, I'm like George. I want people just beating the shit out of each other. And this takeover compared to last takeover, last War Games, granted that the War Games gimmick match at the end was screwed up in the first one, the overall card was better than the card was this one. Yes, they got this War Games right. But the rest of the card was kind of like, oh, really? And then putting we had a couple matches that went the right way, but the one match that went the wrong way was Kyrie's Shayna. He should have stayed on Kyrie, let Kyrie run, and Shayna should have been going to the main roster. Shayna's ready to go. There isn't much left for Shayna Baszler to do down in NXT.
The only reason they are keeping her in NXT, and I've talked about this before, they are only keeping her in NXT as a means by which to carry along blah 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 Marina and Jessamine.
Yeah.
Without the two of them being there and needing to be carried along, Shayna would already be on the main roster. But the problem there is that having her carry the two of them along inevitably, it hastens the conversation of when do we get 4 horsemen versus 4 horsewomen? And they're already alluding to that on social media.
Yeah, and they're already alluding to that everywhere.
Yeah, so it's...
And another thing, the risk we're running too is lessening the impact of Shayna Baszler on the main roster.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was
by having her come up with these 2 freaking lackeys.
Well,
she doesn't need.
That was going to be bound to happen anyway because it's clear that they want Ronda to be the star and to be the cash cow. And
that's what she is.
Yes, but even though Shayna is absolutely the better talent in the ring and also in character, I think that they are making a mistake there. But that's the decision that they are making because of her mainstream viability. It's dumb, but we can't really do anything about it because WWE going to WWE.
Yeah, Vince going to Vince.
Yep. So that is what it is.
But that is takeover.
Yes. On to Survivor Series now. Significantly worse.
Very much so.
Significantly worse. We'll start with the pre-show here. The Survivor Series tag team match. Team SmackDown, the Usos, the New Day, Sanity, Gallows and Anderson, and the Clones defeated Team Raw.
The Clones.
Bobby Roode and Chad Gable, the Revival, the B-Team, Lucha House Party, and the Ascension. As we have covered before with this match, this was a lot of guys coming off the bench who haven't been on TV in a very long time and who we've been wondering what the hell are they doing here, and this was entirely carried by the Usos and the New Day, in my estimation.
Of course,
there was not much to this that was that you could find from any of the other teams, which is a sad state of things, but it is what it is.
I think once you got down to the last 4 teams, Revival, Rude, Gable on the Raw side versus the Usos and the New Day, that's when the match picked up.
Yes.
Because I will give credit to the Revival. They were jacked up for this match. I mean, Scott Dawson is doing suicide dives. Mm-hmm. Scott Dawson is the patron saint of don't do flippy shit.
No flips, just fists.
And Dash Wilder is sitting there doing a tornado DDT off the ring apron. I'm like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
Once you got down to the last 4 teams, the 2 on either side, and got all the fluff out of there, it turned into a pretty damn good match, actually. The problem with getting to that point was kind of tedious. And
I saw the match and I was like, yeah, it got better when it came down to the last 4 teams, but it still could have been so much better.
Well, yeah, if they had given these guys actual time and if they had put in teams that actually mattered, then it would have absolutely been better.
But once again, nobody matters.
Nobody and nothing matters, yes.
That's right. As George says, nobody and nothing matters.
Mm-hmm.
I'm carrying the flag for George tonight.
Thank you for that. Appreciate that. So overall, I mean, I guess it was a good thing to have, but was not really like a huge addition to the card for sure. Next, start of the card proper, the women's Survivor Series match. Team Raw, Mickie James, Nia Jax, Tamina, Bayley, and Sasha Banks defeated Team SmackDown, Naomi, Carmella, Sonya Deville, Asuka, and Mandy Rose. So, yeah,
Sonya Deville or Mandy Rose substituting for Charlotte Flair.
Yes,
please.
While Bayley and Sasha came in for Ruby Riott and for who was the other person that was supposed to be on Team Raw? Natalya,
yeah. And plus, there were rumors flying around on SmackDown side that Nikki Cross is coming.
Yeah, no.
That would have been the perfect fit. Bring that insane little shit up.
Yeah, but that wasn't going to happen.
No, that's the right move. Since when has the Fed made the right move?
Yeah.
There's two words that can describe what's wrong with this women's Survivor
Vince Russo or Vince McMahon.
Well, maybe
those are two words, and they are an accurate description of what's wrong with this match.
Yeah, Vince. I guess you can. Yeah, you called my bluff. Okay, thank you. I mean, I can play poker with you. No, I was gonna break it down. The problem with this match is the problem that Raw has right now. They are trying to use an old school solution to a new age problem. The problem with this match was always going to come down to Nia Jax. She is in a position right now. It's essentially a no-win situation for the company because they're trying to turn her into the skid, and that's the exact wrong thing that they need to be doing. And by having her stand tall at the end of Survivor Series, that's got to be a morale killer in the locker room. And we've talked in different forms in the past. I'm not going to rehash it all here. But it's clear that Nia Jax has a lot of heat on her in the locker room because not a single one of her peers came to her defense on social media while she was getting lambasted. If anything, people in the business were attacking her for what she did. And so WWE told her to turn into the skid and try to get some heat off of it. But you can't get heat when the heat is toxic. This is not good heel heat. This is toxic. We don't like you, go away heat. And eventually that heat's going to collapse into utter silence.
Yes.
But, Nia Jax has basically proven if you are careless and you royally injure someone, you can get a push out of it. But that's what's happened. Now they could have hot-shotted that title match with Ronda Rousey and just got it over with and then gotten rid of Nia. They could have sent her off TV for a while. They could have sent her to the Performance Center, what have you. But no, now Nia Jax is the focal point of the Raw Women's Division. She's got a new nickname. She's got new mannerisms. She's got a whole new character developing around this.
Mm-hmm.
Nia Jax is being rewarded, even if it's not directly so. She's indirectly benefiting from having broken someone else's face.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, and if you notice, Biff, I've not been around. I've also not come to Nia's defense on this one. I started to, and then I saw it, and I was like, wait a minute. It almost looked like AOP, not the tag team AOP, but the actual active AOP. And for those of you that don't understand what that means, that's accidentally on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Nia had an agenda. I'm not saying she did. This is my speculation.
There have been a lot of people who have said that, though.
I'm not, but it's my speculation. I have nothing to base it on. She may have turned and saw it was Becky, and she's like, enough, and something snapped. She was already getting beat up. She was getting hit from behind. And the thing about it is that we don't know if Becky hit her wrong first, because nothing's been said by Becky's side, other than the fact that she got her face busted up and concussed soundly.
The only thing that I know, and this is one of those deals where you have to read between the lines. So you're never going to know unless somebody just outright says it in like a shoot interview in 5 years. The only thing that I know is that when people inside the business, I'm not talking about fans, I'm not talking about a Meltzer, I'm talking about Chris Jericho, who talked about it, Lance Storm talked about it, Josh Barnett talked about it. When you have your peers in the business openly questioning, what the hell are you doing? And then none of her peers come to her defense. Even Nikki Bella or Brie Bella had people in the business come to her defense online when she kicked Liv Morgan in the face. Nia Jax had none of that here. Nia Jax literally was left to the wolves. And WWE even threw her under the bus on TV. They slowed it down and made sure that everybody saw, hey, this is what Nia Jax did. It's like there was no ambiguity over it. There was, let's get the blame right on the spotlight here who took the shot. And I just don't know. It's disgusting to me. I am not a Nia Jax fan. I have nothing personal against her. I don't want to see her on my TV. I don't want to see her matches. I have no interest in paying any money to see her because I find the idea of her getting, a push from this incident disgusting and abhorrent.
Well, Madeline brings up a good point that she was in line for a mega push anyway with her winning the Battle Royal at Evolution. So that is valid that, this was already in the plans. They just decided to stick with the plan instead of nixing the plan because of what she did. And, I hate when this comparison comes up, and I am loath to say it myself, but, the thought of, Nia's family connection certainly is going to come into play here, as you guys talked about, with it being a morale killer. The fact of the matter remains, yes, there is that pre-existing connection to The Rock that, is likely going to come into play as, people asking, well, why is she getting special treatment over anybody else who, if they had done that would have been immediately shit-canned for it. Well, not shit-canned, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. You know what frustrates me, I think, the most about this whole thing, though? Even the fact that they tried to turn her into the heat to kind of diminish some of the backlash against her, they didn't even do that right. No. What's the idea? Like, okay, I'm trying to think of an analogy, a situation in the past. Seth Rollins, when he broke John Cena's nose with the knee, and he became like the face crusher or anything, that added in order to turn into that heat when Seth Rollins had people in the business kind of chiding him, Seth Rollins kind of added that dangerous little twist to his character where, he was the vicious architect. He wasn't just, the snaky. I'm the
guy that hurt your favorites.
Right.
That put your favorites on the bench or whatever.
Yeah, right. Because that whole face thing, that whole breaking of the face thing, laid some groundwork to when Finn Balor got hurt. Although they didn't really say much about, Seth didn't really say much about it because it came out immediately that it was an accident.
Well, it's historically speaking, when you have these types of instances, you're trying to turn someone into heat. You play up off of the fact that they are, dangerous to be around, like Chris Benoit and Sabu. It's not an analogous situation, but it works good enough for this purpose.
Yeah.
In the Chris Benoit Sabu incident in '95, Sabu tried to change his bump in mid move, and that's why he got hurt. Chris Benoit did not injure Sabu. Sabu botched his landing because he tried to change it in mid-flight. But to the fans that were watching, it looked like Chris Benoit just broke Sabu's freaking neck. So in order to turn him into the heat that he got on ECW fans, Paul Heyman started calling him the Crippler. And Chris Benoit went from being just this technical ace to this cold-blooded, dangerous, bone breaker in the ring. And you made money, and he made money off of that. Chris Benoit became a potent character off of that, whereas before he was just a Lance Storm-style good worker. Now he's got a character. That's successfully turning into the heat. Nia Jax, if they wanted to successfully turn her into the heat, they needed to completely diminish the smiling, the happy-go-lucky Nia Jax that she had been before. And just have her be an absolute bone breaker. Like, just
although that also does rely on her having the skill to carry that character work, and I'm going to come right out and say I do not believe that she has the skill to carry that level of character work.
She doesn't. No, she doesn't. I agree with that. I'm just saying this is what they should have tried.
Mm-hmm.
If they're going to take this course, which I think they should have just taken her off TV, personally. But because she's got a track record of injuring people. You know, she injured Bayley. She injured Zelina Vega. She injured Charlotte. She injured Becky. I mean, This is becoming a dangerous trend here.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're going to turn her into the Heat, at least play off the fact that she could destroy you with one punch. That's not what they did. Nia Jax turned into the Heat by becoming a troll. She's sitting there celebrating the fact that she broke someone's face. She's sitting there dusting her hand off and blowing on it and kind of waving it around at people. That is the absolute worst thing she could have done.
Yeah.
That's like poking a rabid dog with a stick.
and any goodwill that the company might have engendered from having her win the title at WrestleMania from Alexa Bliss and having her have that face run out the window, out the fucking window.
Yeah, it's just completely gone. So
yeah.
She can never be a babyface again.
No, not at all.
She's X-Pac now. She's toxic. She's a toxic asset.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's very, very upset. Very upsetting to see. Seth Rollins, Intercontinental Champion, defeated Shinsuke Nakamura.
You're forgetting one thing. Don't forget that after that match, we had the backstage vignette with Stephanie and Baron, Wiley Corbin. It does the clean. They'll get the sweep.
Can we forget about it, please?
Yeah, the sweep. They'll say you get the sweep, and X is going to happen, and we can go on from there. Which later to come out of that, even they were SmackDown was supposed to lose the pre-show match, but somebody missed the mark.
Mm-hmm. And that was just ridiculous that they did that. But
yep.
I can't say I'm surprised because they are going to continue pushing the narrative for forever that SmackDown is the B show and Raw is the A show. So the fact that they put that out there,
they're trying to do the old Nitro Thunder shit, and it is not going to work.
Of course not. But that's this company. A lot of failed experiments. So.
Yep.
Seth Rollins defeated Shinsuke Nakamura, IC champion versus US champion. Thank God this match didn't end with just a series of low blows. We'll say that.
Yes. Amen, brother, for that.
Yeah. That said, Shinsuke Nakamura still has not really shown up in WWE.
A part of it has to do with the fact that they are handcuffing him.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. They're not going to let him.
They're not going to let him loose.
They're not going to let him be the King of Strong Style. That character is dead and gone forever.
Yep, and that's the character we need.
Yeah, that was who the company shelled the money out for, and then immediately decided that was what they didn't want. So,
same thing with Asuka, but I digress.
Yeah.
That match was just like, I'm hungry.
Yeah. We weren't going to get what we wanted there, but
what I wanted was to see those two just tear the house down like I know they could.
Yeah.
It started out that way.
Mm-hmm.
It started out good and strong, and all of a sudden turned to shit.
Yep.
Each of them imitating one another, which made it even funnier. Which was like, oh, this is good. This is interesting. And all of a sudden, it became your normal match.
Yeah.
The famous words of someone, this is a match that happened.
I think hindsight being 2020, the decision not to put the title on Shinsuke Nakamura probably ruined him in WWE. He's just been unmotivated. This is what unmotivated Shinsuke Nakamura looks like. That's what you get.
And I did say, and I stand by the thought that Nakamura does certainly have the capability of showing up. for people that he thinks are worth it. But, unfortunately, that is something he's decided not to do. And it sucks. Absolutely sucks. But, there aren't very many on the main roster that are worth it to him. Yeah. I mean, at this point, the best we can hope for is that when his contract is up, that he, I hate that it's come to this, but there's all the rumors going around that he and Gallows and Anderson might be heading back to New Japan, and if that's what they got to do in order to be respectable in-ring workers again, and be taken for their value, then you know what, I'm all for it.
Yep.
Because WWE could use that shot in the arm. That some people will actually say, yeah, you're going to offer me a shit ton of money, but I also care about the fact that I'm going to enjoy doing what I'm doing when I'm out in the ring. Because at the end of the day, right now, WWE is basically putting all their eggs in the basket of, people are going to come to us because we're going to offer them more money, even if we do, undervalue them and, give them garbage to work with. That's what WWE has put their money on, and it would be nice if we could get some people who would say, that's not everything to me. So, I doubt it'll happen, but
yeah,
if it did, that would be great.
Anyway, like I said, again, match that happened to me. I mean, there weren't very many matches that kept my attention.
No.
It was a slog to watch it. Let's put it that way.
That's a good way of describing it. It's just a slog all night.
Yeah. Next, another match that could have been a hell of a lot better than it was. AOP defeated the Bar. Should have been a lot better. Should have been a lot more impactful of a match.
Can someone answer me a question?
Sure.
Why did Drake Maverick piss himself?
Because creative is a freaking clown card, and they don't know how to tell.
Because this company is creatively bankrupt and doesn't care to change that.
I mean, you've taken a guy, Rockstar Spud, who was Drake Maverick, who was over as like hell at 205 Live as the general manager, right?
Yeah.
And they bring him up to the main roster, and he's doing great as the manager of AOP, and then they turn him into a clown.
I was going to save this whole thing for when we got to this week's episode of Raw, but can I just say, if you're going to have a monster heel tag team, have your monster heel tag team be impactful because they're monster heels, not because their manager is doing some freaking toilet humor gimmick. I mean, come on, what the fuck are we doing here? These guys are absolute beasts in the ring and are capable of so much, and they're being made into a comedy act because this company doesn't know shit about writing things anymore. What the fuck are we doing?
I do want to point out the irony that in the span of the last 2 weeks, not only has this storyline been rendered completely, pointless because Big Show has already turned face again.
That's a thing that happened too. Yep.
But I don't recall. I mean, I remember back in the halcyon days of the NWA when Paul Ellering would piss himself to distract Road Warriors opponents. Oh wait, that never happened because it's fucking stupid.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
That
was my big question. That was my question. Why did Drake Maverick piss himself? And no one can answer it solidly. I mean, it was unneeded. It was an unneeded spot. They tried. It's a throwback to when with Steve Austin and Vince McMahon.
It's dumb. It's dumb
It was dumb back then, and it's dumb now.
Yeah, in the extreme.
We don't need this kind of shocking content.
It's not even shocking. It's just idiotic.
Yeah, it's idiocy. We don't need idiocy. Just give us simple beat the shit out of one another matches. That's what I want. That's all I want. Is that too much to ask for?
Apparently. Next we have a match, the only match that was actually worth its salt at all on this card. Well, I shouldn't say the only match, but I mean it was the best. It was easily the best match on the card, and it was the only match that really seemed like it meant anything on this card. Buddy Murphy retained the Cruiserweight Championship against Mustafa Ali.
Oh, that was a great match.
Yes. Cruiserweight continued to be the single best part of this company.
Yep.
Because they're being allowed to fly under the radar.
Well,
if it means avoiding the creative dumpster fire that is Raw and SmackDown's writing team, let them fly.
Isn't that
I mean, even some of the cruiserweights haven't avoided
Isn't it Ward right now? Isn't it Ryan Ward who's doing the writing for that?
He's SmackDown right now, but SmackDown doesn't matter right now.
Yeah,
and SmackDown has its own run of garbage, but it's not. It's it's a sad state of things when you say at least it's not Raw, but yeah, at least it's not Raw.
Yeah, but that match. I mean, those two tore it down.
Mm-hmm.
It was. And cruiserweights are the ones that I expect Flippy do shit. Okay, because it's more believable. In my book. Hello?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
Okay, you all got quiet. I was like,
no, I thought there was going to be more to it.
No, I was going to say the flippy do shit is expected from the cruiserweights because they're more of a lucha style.
Yes,
which is great. I love it when the little guys do it, but you try to get these big guys doing no.
Some of the big guys are very capable of doing it, but
not many.
Personal preference.
I will say I will say this, and this is not just because Greg the Hold and I do a show on 205 Live, Grounds for Development. It's not just
we'll get there.
It's not just that we cover. It's a lot of people got burned by 205 Live last year during the Enzo Amore run because 205 Live never seemed to matter. It was just a collection of matches thrown on there, and it was just a jumbled mess. If there's anyone out there that saw the Cruiserweight title match at Survivor Series, if there's one thing I could say that could possibly urge you to give 205 Live another shot, 205 Live is not just a jumbled mess of matches anymore. They've actually done a very good job of creating a tiered card where you have a distinguishing level between your main event people on 205 Live and your mid-card and your undercard acts. They're telling stories up and down the card now. They've got a main event picture of people in the title periphery. You've got rivalries going on in the mid-card that are, ranging from blood feuds to exciting, spot fest. Then you have, characters that are doing character work coming up, like a Leo Rush who's, managing on Raw, but he's cutting his teeth in the ring and cutting better promos on 205 Live. It's a really nuanced presentation, much closer to an NXT than it is a Raw right now. And I would heartily recommend, if you enjoyed what you saw, you get that kind of quality every week. At least one good main event quality match per 45-minute show. So it's a testament to what they can do. It's a testament to Buddy Murphy, Mustafa Ali, and Cedric Alexander, kind of the triple threat of that brand. They've really elevated the game and really rescued it from oblivion in the last year. So kudos to them for just a hell of a match on Survivor Series.
Amen to that. I agree with that. Yeah. And again, the only match on the card, at least for my money's worth, the only match on the card that I found to be rightfully enjoyable. Team Raw. Dolph Ziggler, Drew McIntyre, Braun Strowman, Finn Balor, and Bobby Lashley defeated Team SmackDown, The Miz, Shane McMahon, Rey Mysterio, Samoa Joe, and Jeff Hardy. Dear God, why? Dear fucking God, why?
The only time SmackDown had a chance was when Raw was fighting itself.
Mm-hmm.
Raw wasn't fighting itself, SmackDown was getting squashed like insects.
Yeah. All 4 of the last 4 eliminations, Braun Strowman power slams. All within 4 minutes of each other, for the record. Like, this match went, let's see, Samoa Joe was eliminated at the 35-second mark. Then we went almost 12 minutes before the next elimination when Finn Balor got bounced by Rey Mysterio. Then it was another 6 minutes until Dolph Ziggler got bounced by Shane McMahon. And then 2 minutes after that, we had Braun Strowman's first elimination, and within 4 minutes, he eliminated all the rest. And Team Raw won with 3 people standing tall.
One of those matches.
Yep.
Otherwise known as a trash
dumpster fire.
Dumpster fire. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A dumpster fire is going to be the running theme on this show, I think.
It just made no sense. Why would you intentionally destroy one brand's main event picture? SmackDown's already struggling for top faces. So
yeah. Oh yeah.
Why would you just intentionally go out and destroy everybody on the blue brand? Because nobody looked good. Absolutely nobody.
Of course, and but this is Vince and his infinite wisdom. He's going to send SmackDown over to Fox, beaten up, broken down, to the point it's not going to be able to draw a dime, and it's going to wind up being eliminated, which is what I think he wants to do with SmackDown anyway.
Which makes literally no sense, but
But what else is there? What else? What other reason would there be? What other reason would there be?
It's absolutely insane.
Because if we get this kind of content for SmackDown when they get over to Fox and the ratings fall to shit, Fox is going to cut it. It's going to cancel it. And that's going to be the end of SmackDown.
Mm-hmm.
And I see it coming.
I do not understand this company at all. But as George constantly criticizes me for, why am I trying to make sense of Vince McMahon's senile old thinking?
I've given up on that.
Vince gonna Vince. So
that's why I say it all the time. Vince going Vince.
Maybe so, Adam. It is $1 billion for sure. But this whole allegiance to Raw always, forever being the A show is to the point of absolute idiocy at this point. I don't even know what the thought process is.
Yeah. $1 billion don't mean nothing if the product is so beaten down before it gets there.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Ronda Rousey defeated Charlotte Flair by disqualification.
It was a great match until the beatdown started.
I think the problem with this match now is not so much what it was in the moment, because in the moment it was kind of shocking. It was interesting to watch. I think it's the follow-up to the match that has made it retroactively worse than it was. The fact that Ronda came out the next night and just smiled and shook it off and basically
no-sold everything. Yeah,
basically no-sold it. It kind of took the piss out of it, so to speak. And then on the SmackDown side, Charlotte, I don't know what the hell her character is supposed to be right now. I thought, coming out of Survivor Series, she was going to turn into this psycho queen, unhinged character to kind of play off.
Brought back the same heel character that she had before, which was an abysmal. I mean, it wasn't an abysmal failure. It was better than any face character she's ever played. But
it's just a letdown. It's what it is.
Absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
I don't know. Like, this is the match where if you watched it that night, you probably thought, that was a really competitive match and it had an interesting finish. I want to see where they go with it. And now, with the benefit of hindsight, it was an interesting match, but boy, they just completely shit the bed.
Yeah, well, Madeline brings up a very valid point, too. Charlotte got way too wild with the kendo stick, and I agree. She hit her upside. She hit her in the ear multiple times. She also hit Ronda square on the top of the head with that stick at least twice.
Yeah.
What was her reasoning behind that?
Well, Charlotte has always been out of the horsewomen. Charlotte has always been the worst of the in-ring workers. That has just always been a thing, and I don't foresee that changing anytime soon. So that is on her.
And don't forget the elbow to the face, which was inadvertent, which busted Ronda's lip wide open. That was an inadvertent elbow. That was not something that Charlotte actually legit threw at her. She was moving or something, and the elbow just caught her. I saw that. It was accidental. And I give Charlotte that. But I will not give Charlotte the kendo stick action because she lost control.
Absolutely.
Kudos to Ronda for taking the beating like a champ. I mean, she that
she has experience. I'm sorry, that was a cheap shot.
But no, the thing about it is, though, this Biff, she was in her hometown and couldn't get the babyface sympathy. They were booing her when they left. When she walked out of the ring.
That's more symptomatic of what I said 2 weeks ago, which is that no matter what the outcome of this match is, and even with Becky not being involved in this match, Ronda already lost. Ronda lost the match from the get-go because of the fact that Becky has just so handily destroyed her on social media.
Yeah,
and that was never going to be a success to try and get Charlotte any sort of sympathy or proper proper appreciation by the crowd. That was never going to happen.
Becky choosing Charlotte as her proxy, it kind of given the illusion that Charlotte is fighting for Becky, so Becky is somehow represented in that. And plus, I think there was a bit of catharsis with the crowd. They're so fed up with the booking on this show that something Raw finally getting dinged, because Raw was the heel all night. Mm-hmm. Raw brand was being booed. The SmackDown crew were all faces here. For the most part. So, Charlotte Flair going apeshit on Ronda with the cane, at least something happened.
Yeah, but you again, Madeline said, give Ronda a chance to cover up. She didn't.
Yeah, and again, that is on Charlotte. And Charlotte
Ronda walked out of that ring a bloody mess.
Mm-hmm.
In today's terms, she was a bloody mess. All right.
Yeah, Charlotte got a little
she did not even bleed like that in UFC. All right.
Yeah.
We saw her get knocked out not once but twice, and she didn't bleed like this. This was unnecessary, uncalled for. I said it. I said it before, and I'll say it again. The beatdown of Ronda Rousey was not necessary. A double countout or disqualification would have been fine. We don't need a win. We didn't need a clear-cut winner in this match because there wasn't going to be one. Like you said, Chris, Ronda had already lost the Twitter war, and she's continuously losing the Twitter war that's going on right now.
Yep.
But we all know that Ronda's social media game has never been that strong.
Yep. And whoever's writing her social media stuff should be take off the social media team because they are bad at their job.
Yep.
At least in Ronda's case, she has some saving grace. The fact she's going to get to wrestle Nia Jax. She should be the universal babyface in that one.
No. Nobody. Just that's going to be a case of nobody's going to give a shit.
Yeah, that's what that match is going to be. Unfortunately,
I could see it possibly because of what happened on this Monday.
The only thing that'll be of any saving grace to this whole thing is if if Ronda kayfabe breaks Nia's arm.
If she mock stretches her, that would be.
Mock stretches her to the point that Nia can't perform for a while. Then she'll be something. They can make Ronda something again.
I just have a terrible aching fear of building about the Ronda Rousey situation because the news that SmackDown and Fox wants Ronda Rousey on SmackDown, it makes me very curious as to when they're going to pull the trigger and have Ronda jump to the blue brand. It's obvious they want Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey to interact more. Those are future matches they want to book. The question is...
I can tell you exactly what's going to happen. I can tell you exactly what's going to happen. And you mark my words. Today's the 29th of November, 2018. When the contract comes up for SmackDown to move over to Fox, Becky Lynch is going to drop the title, and she is coming over to Raw. And all four of the horsewomen are going to be there, and Ronda's going to stay on Raw. SmackDown's going to be sent over, basically gutted, with nobody of note on that roster. There's just going to be nothing but leftovers over there.
But Fox wants Ronda.
Yeah, Fox wants Ronda, but what are they going to do? Pull the check?
So you're saying they're not going to get Ronda?
No, they're not going to get Ronda. They're not going to get Becky. They're not going to get anybody of note.
Do you know how insanely suicidal that would be of WWE to do that?
But this is Vince. Vince going Vince.
No,
at some point though, even that has to be questioned. Like,
let's back the train up here a second, because Vince works to a certain extent, but one thing Vince don't play around with is his money.
All right, but like I'm saying, this is my opinion. This is my opinion of what I see happening.
Fair.
Okay. I'm entitled to my opinion, am I not?
Yes, you are. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just that's a ballsy opinion. That's
in your opinion, in your logic, yes. In my logic, no.
No, I think it's the ballsy thing. If Vince actually had the chutzpah to tell Fox, screw off, you're going to get who you get, I think that's ballsy no matter what he's saying.
Like I said, what is Fox going to do? Cancel the check? Stop payment on the check? How would that make them look?
I don't necessarily think that they would stop payment on the check, but like I think that they would then, well, because you got to remember, Fox then has the ability to say, okay, well then now we're gonna now put SmackDown on Monday nights in direct competition with Raw. Mm-hmm. So fuck you.
That would be interesting.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that I think that Vince has got to be careful of. He doesn't want to, because this is going to be the first time.
Networks now.
This is the first time that he's going to be on two separate networks like this,
mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of money at stake. So he definitely wants to keep the harmony. I think more pressing than the Ronda situation, though. Honestly, the situation with Ronda is going to be interesting to see play out. I think the real kicker, though, is who is going to be Roman Reigns' replacement.
There isn't one.
No, there isn't.
And this is not just me saying that as a fan of Roman Reigns. There is no way to replace Roman Reigns.
No,
you can't, because nobody. Setting aside the fact that he is one of the best workers in the world right now, and one of the best overall talents in the world right now. Setting aside that fact, there is nobody who has been built up on that roster and who has portrayed themselves with the gravitas to take Roman Reigns' spot on that roster. Brock Lesnar doesn't come around and has clearly shown that he just doesn't give a shit. So he's not a viable replacement. Drew McIntyre has been put in a situation where he has been second fiddle to far too many people for us to consider him as a primary character. So nobody's going to believably put him in that spot. Same thing for Bobby Lashley, who was also a washed-up has-been at this point. Braun Strowman has been turned into a comedic character far too much for anybody to believe that he could possibly be in that spot. And overall, it's just not feasible to expect that there's anybody who could possibly take over that position for Roman. It's just not.
Then here's the $64 million question.
They might try Seth. Yeah, Zed is right. They might try Seth, but I don't believe that Seth even has that ability, because Seth doesn't have the character work that Roman does.
Seth, I think they could have made a run with Seth, but they've spent the last 6 months really cooling him off. Like if Roman had been forced to leave the company back in like July, and you still had Seth Rollins as the white-hot workhorse who's trying to redeem himself from his failings as a character. They were telling that story over the first half of the year. I think they could have made an attempt at it. Now, whether he would have replicated Roman's success or not, I don't know. It's doubtful. But they at least could have made the shot.
Well, okay, question.
They cooled him off so much over the last 6 months. I just don't see that Seth could be a viable option at this point.
Okay, big question. You said to Seth, to get the same success as Roman. Okay, first of all, before I go any further, the smart fans and a lot of the smart fans don't like Roman. We know this. There's a very few smarks out there that like Roman. I'm one. Chris is another. I don't know if you. I'm pretty sure you are because we see what he's done. The casual fans love Roman, but how can you cannot replace? There is such a void right now at the top of the card with Roman being gone.
Mm-hmm.
That Seth, there is no one. They could try with Seth. Yeah, it might work, but for a while. But there is no one that they could put in his place that's going to have the same kind of run or effect.
Well, I think we need to clarify two different things here because there's two sides of this coin, and I don't want to conflate one side with the other because there's the pragmatic sense of they need somebody to be the focal point of the story because if you don't have a focal actor to build your main story around, then you get what you had Monday, which is just a whole lot of nothing. But then the flip side of that is, can the replacement live up to the guy that he is replacing? Which I think we all agree, no, not in the short term. They don't have anybody ready to fill that role.
And they should have.
They should have, but that's on WWE for not, being pragmatic and building up other people at the same time that they did Roman.
Not even pragmatic. It's more proactive than anything.
Yeah,
and that's really the biggest problem is that they, and as much as I love the fact that Roman, rose to the occasion and, has picked up from an absolutely disastrous 2015 to have 3 great years with the company now at this point. At this stage of the game, Roman Reigns is irreplaceable because the company decided to make it so. And that was their biggest failing. The fact that they didn't have the foresight or the intelligence to consider, this is a guy who, has, even setting aside the leukemia, this is a guy who has had hernia issues already, who came down with the mumps out of nowhere, who has, had a lot of other issues that have kept him out of the ring over the course of this main event run. And, maybe given those facts, maybe we should be a little bit more thoughtful about what we do with our talent and have somebody set up to replace him. And rather than do that, rather than have Braun Strowman be a credible top-level heel, rather than have Drew McIntyre be a credible top-level heel, rather than have Seth Rollins or Finn Balor be a credible top-level face, they decided, screw it.
Yeah. And I hate to say this, Chris, but I need to get going.
That's fine.
Got a vehicle to get warmed up because it is rather chilly here tonight.
That is all right, Dick. I appreciate you being here.
It has been my pleasure to be here.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it very much, my friend.
Okay, and y'all have a good rest of the show. I'll try to catch the remainder once I get to work.
All right. Thank you very much, brother.
All right. Take it easy, my friend.
Good night.
All right. So, given those facts, Biff, is there any salvaging this? Because we didn't even talk about the main event of Survivor Series yet, and that disaster. Is there any salvaging this for Raw for this period of time that we have coming up?
I don't think there's any hope of seeing Raw rebound until after the Rumble, personally, because you're entering the period of time during the year where creative is at its nadir, at its lowest point.
Yeah.
The holidays coming up really affect the quality of the shows. We've seen this for years now. So I don't know. The Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose feud has been so putrid that it's cooling both guys off. which I didn't think was possible, but it's happening.
Yeah. WWE said, "Hold my beer," and
WWE proving to snatch victory from the jaws of
defeat from the jaws of victory in this case.
Yeah, there you go. It's I don't know what they do. I think honestly, probably their best shot at this point, with the exception of some sort of shake-up or some sort of unseen roster move. Maybe you get a Rumble winner that decides to challenge Brock Lesnar from SmackDown. Although on SmackDown side, the problem with SmackDown is they have no credible top baby faces right now outside of AJ Styles. Because you just turned Daniel Bryan heel. Jeff Hardy, you can't really bank on Hardy or Mysterio with their injury histories, and they've both got a lot of age and wear on them.
Exactly.
Joe and Nakamura have pretty much been reduced to non-factors over the summer.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to run with them. Rusev is nothing now. You've missed your window on him. So, outside of like some disastrous babyface turn for Andrade Cien Almas when he doesn't need one, SmackDown's got a problem of having credible top-level faces for Bryan to work with once you get past AJ.
Yeah. Well, that's been their problem for quite a long time. Is that even before that whole thing, they didn't have any credible top-level faces, and treating the WWE Championship as a mid-card belt, basically made it impossible for them to start building people because they didn't portray it as being a point of importance.
Honestly, I don't know if Taker would agree. I mean, he might, but I think this is definitely going to be a controversial take. The fact that there's no one single person that's really set up to replace Roman Reigns as the focal point of the company, honest to God, I believe that with the company unwilling or unable to produce that character, the fans are going to choose a character to turn into the de facto face of the company. Which is interesting because if we go on the momentum right now, for the first time in the history of that company, that face is a woman. That's Becky Lynch. Because Becky Lynch is the only property on either brand right now that is organically over on a level big enough to justify saying, yeah, that's why we're tuning in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
we know this company's history enough to know that they won't treat Becky with that level of importance.
No, that's a recipe for disaster, because the worst thing that could happen to Becky Lynch is Vince McMahon take an interest in her and try to make her into top star.
Yeah.
like Becky Lynch, if she's going to succeed long term, she needs to be right in the wheelhouse where she is now, where she can have a little bit of agency over what she does on social media.
Yeah.
Get a few badass lines on TV, because the second Vince tries to mold her into something else, she's dead in the water.
Yeah. I would love to see them make the women the face of the company, Adam. I absolutely would. But we all know Vince's history. And, just how likely that is to turn into an absolute freaking debacle. It would just be terrible. So I do not, as much as I would love to see that happen, I do not think that is a smart overall decision, business-wise. Let's knock out this main event, talk about Raw, and then we'll call it a night here, because we've been going for about 2 hours now. Been a hot minute here. Brock Lesnar defeated Daniel Bryan. Thankfully, the match did not wind up featuring Daniel Bryan getting carted out on a gurney or anything like that happening. But and they did have a couple of hope spots, so this was about as good as we could have expected it to be. Still not anything to write home about, but it was something.
Yeah, it's that's pretty much my assessment of the match. It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
If you like Bryan and you wanted to see him get his match with Brock, well, at least you got that off your bucket list. I think that this match probably suffers more from the extenuating circumstances around it more than anything, because you're coming off of Bryan turning heel 5 days before. The match itself wasn't even official until 5 days before. Hot shotting the WWE title on a go-home edition of SmackDown was definitely a kind of a surprise move.
Absolutely. It was a dumb move.
Yes.
At every level.
Completely agreed. But You know, it's like it kind of took the heat out of the match because now the fans are like, well, who do you cheer for? Do you cheer for Brian? Do you cheer for?
Yeah, there was no way to salvage this in a way that would have made it, you know, worthwhile to cheer for anybody. But you know, it is what it is. It happened.
Yeah, the only reason this match went on last, I truly believe, is because Becky got hurt. If Becky hadn't got hurt, the heat of the Becky Ronda showdown would have probably pushed that match into main event territory.
Absolutely.
So. But it's like it's a perfect microcosm of the entire show. Down and fury that ultimately mean nothing. So, it is what it is. You know, it's a shame, but it's the plight of a WWE fan right now.
Yeah. All right. Last little thing, and then we'll get out of here. Monday Night Raw this week. If you watch Monday Night Raw, you know that this week's Monday Night Raw was an absolute abomination of television. And we're going to just run down the list of things that happened here. I did not watch, but, you know, thankfully, we have the Cliff Notes version of the show assembled for us. And we can take a look at it based on that. So Baron Corbin is still somehow the main power broker on Raw. He began the show by, well, not began the show, but throughout the course of the show, attempted to create yet another authority figure out of a heel in the form of Alexa Bliss, presumably for the sake of, you know, further beating down the baby faces because, you know, we don't have enough cases of baby faces being beaten down by heel authority figures on this show. Clearly, we need even more. I mean, you know, that's totally not a tired, overused trope of WWE. Not at all. Certainly not.
I mean, hey, they went like 6 months without using it, so you know it was time to go back to the
back to the well. Yep. We have yet again another faction of heels that has become the dominant force on the show. This time it is now Corbin, Bobby Lashley, and Drew McIntyre. Remember when Bobby Lashley was considered a face when he first showed up? Because that was an interesting time. He's not quite a Big Show level of turns yet, but he's getting there.
I mean, it's at this point, Bobby Lashley as a face, as a heel, he's almost just, you know, happy to be there, Bobby Lashley still. Because I don't really buy him as a top-level guy, even though they want us to. It's just, there's nothing, it's just too generic. It just feels like a big ball of nothingness, whether he's a face or a heel. I can't be invested enough either way to care.
Fair enough. That's an accurate assessment of things. And it's a sad state of things too, given the fact that, you know, we've talked about, you know, his run on TNA and, you know, how he was a very good top level credible heel in 2015 and 16 on TNA. And then, you know, he came back to WWE and up now back to once again pretty much exactly what he was when he was with the company the first time. You know, all hype and no deliverance.
He completely lost all his personality. just completely gone. So
yeah. And you know, Drew McIntyre, you know, for all the talk that there is about Drew being you know, being a top level guy, they certainly do like to just stick him with people that are completely irrelevant. So
yeah, if Drew McIntyre is an interesting case because you see the potential in him, but it's like they are intent on like chipping away as much of him as possible before they actually pull the trigger. It's like they're intentionally trying to wear him down a little bit so that he doesn't fly quite as high. Because if there's one thing that just screams, you know, success, it's being paired off with Dolph Ziggler, like, and being Dolph's backup at that.
Yeah, that I will never understand the logic behind that decision, but you know, that's what it is.
Yeah, so I don't know what the hell they're going to do. I honestly don't. Unless they like shock the hell out of me and just hot shot somebody from NXT like Aleister Black to the main event role on Raw, which I just can't see happening in a million years.
But yeah, especially not Aleister Black, given his size.
Yeah,
Vince loves his big sweaty men.
Yeah, I don't even know who they've got in NXT that would fit that role. Maybe.
Apparently there's speculation is that there's going to be some sort of bidding war for Lars Sullivan, and that he's going to be considered the next big thing. Which
that's a lot.
Just great. Another monster heel. That's exactly what we need.
God, is it too late to switch to Ring of Honor?
Yeah. Since Ring of Honor is probably going to be a dead company if all elite wrestling becomes a thing. Ring of Honor is yeah, that is a thing. But anyway, back to Raw. So yeah, the trio of Corbin, Lashley, and McIntyre ran roughshod on Elias, who has somehow become a babyface despite constantly insulting the crowd, and then kicked the shit out of Finn Balor later in the show. Who is, basically irrelevant at this point, which is the most disgusting thing to say, but it's true. For the guy who formed the Bullet Club to be irrelevant in the world of professional wrestling, that is just disappointing in the extreme.
You talk about like Nakamura and Gallows and Anderson wanting to go back to New Japan. God willing, I hope Finn Balor can get the hell out of there and go back to being Prince Devitt, because this Finn Balor nonsense in WWE has done nothing but waste the last 5 years of his career.
Yeah. So sad state of things, because he was great in NXT.
They never got behind him again after the injury at SummerSlam.
No, they didn't.
It's like they say it completely soured them. It was a complete fluke accident, a bad move. A dangerous and pointless move, but a fluke nonetheless. And yet they completely soured on him and just never went back. So I don't get it, and I never will. But hey, it's their company. They want to squander talent. That's their right. They've squandered enough over the years.
Yep, indeed. Yeah, and that's really the crux of this whole thing. The trio of heels, the power brokerage of Corbin. Everything on this show is basically just heat. There's no substance. It's all just who's going to get the heat, and especially when there's no payoff to that heat. It's pretty stupid. It's not. This is not written well at all. This is not planned well. There's nothing to this that makes any sort of sense, good in the professional sense, in the intended sense of wrestling creative.
There's no counterbalance. It's like Star Wars without the Rebel Alliance. Like the Empire's just running roughshod, blowing up planets, and there's nobody to stop them. Because there's no Luke Skywalker, there's no Han Solo, there's no Princess Leia. It's like you've got Corbin and Lashley and McIntyre running roughshod, and the only two people that seem to have any hope of stopping them, Finn Balor and Elias. That's not exactly, a
riveting.
Yeah, it's not exactly like a heavyweight threat to these guys, And then you got Braun Strowman, who, could have been something, but they run him into the ground this year so damn badly.
Yeah, I don't know. Into a cartoon character. I will stake by that forever.
Yeah,
a fucking cartoon character.
I'm looking, and at this point, I don't even know that they could go out and get like a top level New Japan star like a Kenny Omega and just throw them in there and it work. Well, I don't think it would. I honestly don't.
If you think there's any possibility that they would put somebody who's not from within the company in that top level spot, I mean AJ was good enough to break the barricade and overcome the stereotypes and make something of it, because he just is that good. But the company's not going to do that again. The company's not going to put somebody from an outside from outside the Fed in that position again. Not while Vince is still in charge, because Vince is still the pettiest motherfucker that there is in the world right now. From a professional standpoint.
It just that what it does is it puts a lot of worry in me that they're going to rush a call up that doesn't need to be called up yet.
Probably.
Like Velveteen Dream. That's my big fear, that they try to rush his development because they have nobody and they need somebody, and they think, he's so popular in NXT, you know.
Velveteen Dream, Bianca Belair. I mean, hell, they're doing that with Lars Sullivan right now, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's just frustrating.
This
whole show is frustrating.
Yeah. The only babyface with any sort of credibility, Seth Rollins, did an open challenge for the IC title. And who should answer it but Dolph Ziggler? Oh, wait, we've already seen Dolph Ziggler versus Seth Rollins about 927 times this year. So why should we care?
We don't. And Reddit had a great post. They actually had a YouTube clip that was cut of the reactions on Reddit as the match was announced. And the torrent of people that went from hopeful and optimistic to just shitting on the show. It was hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people just did not want to see this match. They've seen it too many damn times. Like, enough. It was a good cheeseburger back when I first had it in the summer. Now it's moldy and, you know, caked in dust, and I would like a different meal, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Blah, 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 blah. And there was a pre-tape segment of Dean Ambrose cutting a promo on Seth about how Seth is sick and there's no medicine to cure him. And this was all happening while a doctor was shooting a needle into his butt because he needs a rabies shot. Why? Yeah. I cruise right past that one.
So the only thing I can think of is that WWE had a hold my beer type bet with somebody. That's all I can say.
Lucha House Party as babyfaces don't care about rules for matches and do whatever the hell they want, and don't care about tagging in and out, don't care about who's the legal man is, and just do whatever the fuck they want to because that's what they do. Because, you know, rules only matter when we care to pay attention to them.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Or for the courts.
Yep. Nia Jax cut the worst promo of her career, which is not saying much because she hasn't ever had a good promo. But she cut the worst promo of her career. Ronda Rousey then came out and cut an equally bad promo. And somehow Natalya and the Riot Squad got involved in that somehow. Things just happened. There was no cohesion, no purpose, nothing of any sort of meaning to that segment. It was all just a series of events that happened, and there was no sense to it at all.
Do you have you ever seen the movie Dumb and Dumber with Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels back from the 90s?
It's been a very long time, but I have seen it, yes.
Imagine Lloyd Christmas sitting at the bar drunk going, I don't care.
Basically, yeah.
Any of this.
I've got a little bit more recent of a reference. If you're a fan of Family Guy, one of the evergreen lines of Family Guy is Peter Griffin saying, "Oh my God, who the hell cares?"
Oh,
that essentially is this.
Yeah, this is bad. This is the worst type of bad. This is not Heroes of Wrestling bad where you can, you know, kind of sad laugh at it. This is just, you know, Bethesda
bad.
Video Game Studios bad right now, where it's just a tire fire of epic proportions.
Mm-hmm. We already talked about this, but there is the monster heel tag team of the show is the focal point of that monster heel tag team is their manager pissing himself. And the toilet humor gimmick. For your monster heel tag team, rather than having them beat the shit out of people, you are going with comedy toilet humor. Well, because you decide, and this is entirely based out of the fact that you decided to change their names for the sake of saving space in tweets.
Ugh.
Can I please just... I don't even... Ugh. I want to vomit.
Just Control-Alt-Delete that whole team. They're done.
Which is the saddest fucking thing, because they had unlimited potential as a Monster Heel team. They're great talents, and they've been turned into a fucking joke, all because they decided that they wanted to have Drake Maverick as the manager instead of Paul Ellering, and they wanted to do this stupid ass gimmick.
Well, cocaine's a hell of a drug, so
And it is. This is kind of just a fragmented bit, but it just irritates me about the fact that this has been a focal point of discussion that they just seem intent on avoiding and making a mockery of as much as possible. Alexa Bliss books a segment where Bayley and Sasha have an open forum to answer questions from the audience. After announcing this, Bayley and Sasha both go on Twitter and talk about the importance of women's tag titles as a way to promote the segment. Rather than address this for the company that wants you to care so much about their social media stuff, instead they decided to have them talk about changes in the women's division and running down Alexa Bliss as the authority figure, who, need I remind you, was only installed that night. Because, letting things build and letting things develop, we can't possibly do that. We won't be able to keep the heat.
I mean, is there any heat left in Sasha and Bayley at this point?
Nope.
We're talking like entropy here, the heat death of the universe levels of ice coldness. That's the same problem with Dolph and Seth Rollins. I mean, when you have Bayley and Sasha wrestle the Riot Squad, I love the Riot Squad. I love all three of the women involved in that stable. I think all three could be huge stars for the company in their own way. But when you wrestle the same people for 15 straight weeks, you just don't give a shit about any of it. Nope. It's just completely pointless. Who cares what Alexa Bliss says? She just got put in that night. It's like, I don't even. And this whole thing with Natalya and the Riot Squad fighting over sunglasses or whatever, it's like so indescribably dull and bad that I don't even pay attention to it. I just completely ignore that entire storyline, because I know, number one, it ain't going anywhere. Number two, it ain't going to matter anything. It's not going to amount to a hill of beans.
Yeah, in 3 months, that storyline will have been forgotten about completely. Just like everybody who's not Ronda Rousey has been forgotten about completely.
Yeah. It's, just one more tire to the fire. Mm-hmm. That is Raw.
Yep. Amen to that. And the segment ended with a random attack by Alicia Fox, Mickie James, and Dana Brooke, who suddenly matters again. Who I'm betting people were wondering, wait, she's still with the company? Because, who the fuck knows where Dana Brooke has been, for, however long it's been since she was last on TV when she abandoned Titus Worldwide. So, yeah, suddenly that's a thing. As I said, this episode of Raw was probably one of the worst. It was definitely one of the lowest low points for the company this year. Absolutely the worst episode of Raw that's happened this year, and maybe one of the lowest low points of the company in the past decade. It was just abysmal.
It's the kind of show that makes you question why you're a wrestling fan. It really does. It's the kind of show that even casual fans kind of sit up and be like, wow, that was really putrid.
Yep.
And it's probably going to be just as bad on Monday. It's probably not going to get any better for the foreseeable future.
It's unfortunate, yeah.
So, hold on tight. Just get through to January. If you can get to January, wrestling gets good again. Because New Japan's got a series of shows between the Wrestle Kingdom and then the night after, where they kind of set up the next cycle of storylines. And you've got 2 takeovers to look forward to. And the Rumble is always good to kind of reset things and get things on an upward trajectory. So
let's keep our fingers crossed for that. All right. It's been over 2 hours. We have taken up more than enough of your time. Friends, thank you guys for sticking with us tonight. Biff, please let the people know where they can find you during the course of the week.
You can catch me over at Twitter, Real Deal Biff. You can find it over at Cage Side Seats, the daily and nightly threads. Generally the nightly threads now, but sometimes in the day. Of course, shows with Greg the Hold, Grounds for Development, that drop Thursday mornings. Generally around 10 a.m. Eastern on YouTube. And then we've got Connoisseurs of Wrestling with Taker's Minion, who had to leave early tonight, Legends Lover, and George Savas of Two Guys, One Sport. That's coming your way 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central. So if you need a break from Raw, please jump over to Connoisseurs. We actually talk about good wrestling. So it's your lifeboat in the hurricane of suck that is Raw.
Bringing the history into the present.
There you go.
Very worthwhile view. And you know, as Biff mentioned, Grounds for Development and Connoisseurs of Wrestling, two shows that are part of the LIP network of shows. The other show that we would like to make sure you guys know about, other shows, I should say, on Saturday mornings, Shooting Debris, as part of the Los Ingobernables, the podcast network. Taker's Minion, who you heard earlier on the show, along with his co-host and partner in crime, Mr. Dr. Senju, bringing their own unique takes and knowledge of the professional wrestling world to you on Saturday mornings. Get your breakfast, get your graps. Join them on Saturday mornings, 11 Eastern, 10 Central, for their awesome content as well. And as always, here, Two Guys, One Sport, Thursday nights, 9 Eastern, 8 Central, with me and George when he gets back. We'll be back next week with episode 83. We're going to be starting our end of the year discussions next week on the show, and looking ahead to what's to come with New Japan as we close in on the end of World Tag League, head towards the Dome, and then we got TLC on the table after that. So a lot of good content coming your way in that regard. Be advised, folks. If we've been talking about it for a couple months now, so if you have not kept up on it, now is the time to be aware. Starting this Saturday with this Saturday's edition of Shooting Debris, all of the shows on the Los Ingobernables podcast network, that is Connoisseurs of Wrestling, Two Guys, One Sport, Grounds for Development, and Shooting Debris. Oh, and also One Night at the Round Table, which we will talk about in just a second, are all moving over to twitch.tv/Los Ingobernables podcast. The link is in the video description below. We would ask that you please go on over to Twitch, drop us the follow there, and help get the channel off to a good start. We're going to be moving everybody over there, and it's going to be, we think, a great way to liven up the audience, bring a new group of people in to hear our content and to expand our network as a whole. And we'd love to have you guys be a part of that. So please go follow the link over there to twitch.tv/Los Ingobernables podcast, and go show some support to the entire network, and as we make our big move on over to this new chapter for the broadcasts. And as I mentioned, One Night at the Round Table, the last show on the LIP network that I did not cover during the initial setup plugs. One Tuesday a month, featuring myself, Taker's Minion, and Legends Lover, featuring topics of discussion on the more serious end of the wrestling spectrum. We had our show about a week and a half ago where we talked about CM Punk's legacy in wrestling and how he has left an overall negative impact on the wrestling world as a whole. And next month, we're going to be talking about Eddie Guerrero and the use of his death in storylines on WWE, and how this company has just not learned its lesson about how that is just a tasteless and classless and overall bad decision to do that sort of thing. So I encourage you to please go check it out on one Tuesday night out of the month, One Night at the Round Table with myself, Taker's Minion, and Legends Lover. There'll be updates on all of our Twitter feeds about when that will happen, because we don't really know, because we have to work around my schedule of when I have my bass lessons and all that other good stuff. But as soon as we know what date it will be, we will let you all know. So please keep an eye out for that. Other shows we like to support, please be sure to check out Tanya Rogers with Suplexes and Shea Butter featuring Danny and Princess Claudine. Select Wednesday nights. They haven't had a show in a little bit, but they are all excellent partakers of the wrestling fan experience, and they have lots of good information, lots of good takes to bring about the perspective of wrestling from the perspective of three women of color, a thing that is sorely needed, as we say always, because wrestling is for everyone, and we want to make sure that we hear all perspectives and all sides of the wrestling fan experience. So please be sure to support Suplexes and Shea Butter. Go find Tanya on Twitter at MaliciaMaliceJoe and get all the information about the show for when it's live. And on the same token, also please follow Darnell Mitchell with the Queer Nerds at the Queer Nerds with a Z on Twitter. Another show they haven't had a broadcast in a bit, but again, very important to have their perspective out there as well. Wrestling from the perspective of people of color, women, and members of the LGBTQ plus community. Very important perspective to bring to the table as always. Please go and show your support to them as well, and make sure that you thank both of these shows for bringing that sorely needed perspective to the wrestling fan experience.
Great cruise, absolutely great cruise.
Yes, indeed. What else is there? Please follow George and I on our personal Twitters. I am at CrazyChris576 and George is at GatSubs. And follow the show on Twitter as well at 2guys1sport, number 2, number 1 in the handle. And be sure to communicate with us all throughout the week and let us know what you think about the show, what you guys want to talk about in terms of the wrestling world, because we love talking with you guys, especially during the show and throughout the course of the week, and hearing what your opinions and thoughts are about the wrestling world going on right now. So please get connected with us. We would love to hear from all of you. On the same token, also, you can find us on iTunes. If you're not able to catch the live broadcast, please go on over to iTunes and check us out there. The link is in the description below the video as well. Subscribe, give us a rating, give us a recommendation, and drop the thumbs up on the YouTube. Again, we will likely be keeping the YouTube active with the past broadcasts of the show. As well as another outlet for you guys to check us out if you are unable to catch the live show, and we will do our best to get you guys connected with us on other podcasting syndication networks as well. So please, thank you for please continue your support, and thank you for continuing that support for as long as you have, guys. We are actually coming up on this February or March, I believe. Coming up on 2 years of Two Guys One Sport, which is insane to think about, that we've been doing this for almost 2 years. So thank you guys for continuing to allow us to do this, for bringing us into your Thursday nights, and for making us a part of your wrestling fan experience. It's a pleasure to have you guys all here. And if you're looking for any non-wrestling content, of course, you can follow me on my personal Twitch channel at CrazyChris576, or twitch.tv/CrazyChris576, I should say. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, bringing you all the video game streaming content that your hearts desire. Tomorrow night's stream is going to be a late one if we are able to have one, because I have some family obligations to take care of. And the Saturday night as well will also likely be a later stream. But I would love to have you guys hanging out over there. Always great to have you guys here in the chat for wrestling, and love to talk to you about other things in life as well, because my channel, even though we are streaming video games, we talk about all sorts of things going on with just life in general and other interests. It's more about connecting with you guys and talking about what you care about, what's going on in your lives, and just giving you a place to have a good open forum of discussion. So please, if you feel so inclined, would love to have you go and check it out. Again, twitch.tv/CrazyChris576. Thank you, Biff, and thank you belatedly to Taker, guys, for being on the show. It's always a pleasure to have you guys, and I look forward to having you back here again soon for even more of the same, because you guys are both great knowledgeable sources in the wrestling world, and I am happy to have you as part of the overall show experience. So thank you for being here, man.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for having us. And I'm sure Taker say the same thing. It's always fun to be on the flagship show, Two Guys One Sport. So
it's funny that we are considered the flagship show, but I guess that's what it is. But we are here in the presence of greatness. That is the honest truth. You know, the people that we have as part of the network, I say for George as well, we are surrounded by an abundance of riches in terms of the people that we are associated with as podcasters. So we're just happy to be associated with you great people. So thank you for that.
LIP for life, baby.
LIP for life. So for Taker's Minion and for Biff Kensington, my name is Chris. This has been episode 82 of Two Guys One Sport, and it is weird to be doing the outro myself rather than having George do it. But I'll do the best I can for you guys.
Nailed it. You nailed it. It was perfect.
So be good to each other. Be kind to each other. Don't work yourselves into a shoot. Don't be a dick on Twitter. Support your local indies. Support those in need. And as we approach the winter as well, if you have things that you can give to charity at this point in time, please do so. And above all, thank you again for being part of Two Guys One Sport. And have a good night. Episode 82 is in the books.